So I don't know why we're not spending more time on this. I also don't know why, these stats come in every day, and we have a couple people on our show who are really interested in this stuff, share my interest in it. And so they're constantly sending me this stuff. I just got one today. So there's, of course, the life expectancy numbers 3 years in a row down. I mean, if that's not a red alert, I'm not sure what is. The suicide numbers are my fixation. I know 4 different people have killed themselves in the last year and a half, all middle-aged men. And I'm going to be 50 in May. If you're roughly my age, ask yourself if you don't know people who've killed themselves recently. You probably do, because the epidemic is that widespread. And by the way, these are affluent people too. The causes are a little different from what I thought. Like, if men don't have full-time work, families fall apart. If men make less than women, women don't want to marry them. This is not some Handmaid's Tale like talking point that we in the alt-right believe. This is the product of like a century of consistent social science. And by the way, I wish it weren't true. I wish women were very excited to marry overweight, indolent men who played video. I'm serious.
Tucker, what are you?
No, I'm serious. I wish it were enough to sort of be charming at dinner. But it's not, actually. And that's not a choice that men make. It's an instinct that women have. And it's true over time across population, race, income. So clearly this is a feature of human nature. So if you're mad about it, kind of not my problem. At some point you have to address people as they are, which is my basic problem with a lot of what happens in Washington, is not address human nature, which is immutable. It's the one thing that doesn't change. And so if you have a society where, on average, women make more than men, you will see a very predictable series of events. Women will stop getting married. They will not stop having children, by the way. That's a biological imperative. They will continue to do that, but those children will not have a father in the home over large populations. And that's exactly, and then everything else that happens, which as conservatives we're very familiar with, because we spent a lot of time moralizing about it. I certainly have a lot of time. And we spent almost no time asking, how can we make this better? So if you have a society where the only full-time employers, and this is true in Western Maine, and it's true in much of rural America, are the hospitals and the schools, you have to ask yourself, can you have a functioning society, the basis of which is always the nuclear family, always. But the statistic that I got today, which I think is, and I don't care how it sounds because I think it's real. Out today, 2 hours ago, new study shows that the number of men under 30 who report having no sex at all ever has risen by 3-fold in 10 years.
Yes, sir. You just found it. Intercourse with you. Let's chat.
Welcome to the Intercourse Show. I am your host, Mr. B. Today we're discussing Tucker Carlson's message to men. It's a message that speaks to some stats, that speaks to the changes that's happened with men. On this particular video, he talks about how there's less opportunities for men to really earn a fair wage, a fair living, and a lot of women are losing respect for men that they earn more from. They're not incentivized to want to marry a man that does not make as much money or far less money than they do. So then the loss of respect leads to those women not desiring to join in matrimony, to join in marriage with a man that they feel like can't really provide security, financial security for them. And so because that happens, you have a higher gap of men not getting married, and more importantly, men not, being able to mate, because that's being reserved for the very select few that can afford to mate with women. And so now what you have is you have less women interested in wanting to get married, but you have those women still desiring to have children. So a lot of times the women end up having children, but it ends up being a single family household, and it just kind of keeps this downward cycle. And so this is what he's going to speak to. Then I'll get your take on everything. All right, guys. With that said, we're going to start the video.
The home values are going up all the time in every county around it. But you also go to Western Maine. Was that something that clued you in that maybe?
Yeah, it had a huge impact on my life, on my politics, on the way I see the country. Yeah, I've gone to the same little town my whole life. One of the poorer counties, one of the poorest counties on the East Coast. Beautiful place. And I've watched it dissolve I mean, the culture there, there's wonderful people. I spend 3 months a year there every year. And, you watch the same very familiar pathologies that we wrote a lot about in the 80s and 90s in the inner city, right in the middle of this overwhelmingly conservative, 100% white, rural community. And you start to ask yourself, like, well, why is this happening? Is it because they just, is welfare doing this? Well, I'm not sure that our assistance programs make it better. I think they undermine the family in a lot of ways. But they're not the problem. I mean, they didn't cause this. Actually, they're exacerbating it. They didn't cause it. And what caused it was the collapse of male jobs. And we should have learned this. And it actually has made me reassess a little bit. Not my feelings about watching the family collapse in inner city America. I still feel that's a disaster. It demonstrably has been a disaster. There's really no other way to look at it. But the causes are a little different from what I thought. Like, if men don't have full-time work, families fall apart. If men make less than women, women don't want to marry them. This is not some Handmaid's Tale like talking point that we in the alt-right believe. This is the product of like a century of consistent social science. And by the way, I wish it weren't true. I wish women were very excited to marry overweight, indolent men who played video. I'm serious.
Tucker, what do you...
No, I'm serious. I wish it were enough to sort of be charming at dinner. But it's not, actually. And that's not a choice that men make. It's an instinct that women have. And it's true over time across population, race, income. So, like, clearly this is a feature of human nature. So if you're mad about it, kind of not my problem. At some point, you have to address people as they are, which is my basic problem with a lot of what happens in Washington. Does not address human nature, which is immutable. It's the one thing that doesn't change. And so if you have a society where, on average, women make more than men, you will see a very predictable series of events. Women will stop getting married. They will not stop having children, by the way. That's a biological imperative. They will continue to do that, but those children will not have a father in the home over large populations. And that's exactly, and then everything else that happens, which as conservatives we're very familiar with, because we spend a lot of time moralizing about it. I certainly have a lot of time. And we spend almost no time asking, like, how can we make this better? So if you have a society where the only full-time employers, and this is true in Western Maine, and it's true in much of rural America, are the hospitals and the schools, you have to ask yourself, like, can you have a functioning society, the basis of which is always the nuclear family, always, in such a place? And the answer is no, you can't. So I don't know why we're not spending more time on this. I also don't know why, these stats come in every day, and we have a couple people on our show who are really interested in this stuff, share my interest in it. And so they're constantly sending me this stuff. I just got one today. So there's, of course, the life expectancy numbers 3 years in a row down. I mean, if that's not a red alert, I'm not sure what is. The suicide numbers are my fixation. I know 4 different people have killed themselves in the last year and a half, all middle-aged men. And I'm going to be 50 in May. If you're roughly my age, ask yourself if you don't know people who've killed themselves recently. You probably do, because the epidemic is that widespread. And by the way, these are affluent people too. Something's going on. There's no interest in what that might be. But the statistic that I got today, which I think is, and I don't care how it sounds because I think it's real. Out today, 2 hours ago, new study shows that the number of men under 30 who report having no sex at all ever has risen by 3-fold in 10 years. So I'm reading this and I'm thinking, I'm a social conservative, just for the record, a pretty strident one, actually. My first thought was, well, porn. That was my first thought, which I think is bad. I do. But that's not it. I thought, what society does that remind me of? It reminds me of the Middle East, actually. One of the core problems in the Middle East, and we lay this at the feet of polygamy, but it's deeper than that, is that the economic stratification is so profound that only the rich people get to mate. And you have a huge population of young men who don't have mates. Now, I'm sorry if it makes you uncomfortable, it's just true, because again, it's nature, and the farther away you get from nature, the farther off course you are. Nature tells you, and your life experience tells you, you don't want a large population of celibate men. That is a recipe for instability, for chaos, actually. It's a dangerous group to have. You're lucky. No wonder everyone's pushing weed on the population. I'm not joking, because they're afraid. And so what that is a picture of, it's a picture of a society in which the spoils increasingly go to a smaller or shrinking really number of people. And your average young person, that's the poorest segment of our society, is young people, don't have enough to buy a car or a house. They're shackled to student loans from which they cannot escape. And they don't have enough to mate. And one of the reasons is because they're living with their parents. We have a higher percentage of young men living with their parents than in my lifetime by far. That's an economic question. Now, I'm not espousing socialism, obviously, which I abhor and which does not work, at least in the way that it's been administered in every country that I'm aware of. What I'm saying is we're going to get something really radical and destructive and dangerous unless we address these things. That's the only point I made.
And you say you're not a populist. You grew up in all these, in a nice area. You grew up, you live among the elites. You like your home in Washington.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. And, but your book, your recent book, Ship of Fools, you kind of trace this to the idea that it was Democrats who gave up on Youngstown. That was, of course, Traficant's accusation, right? And
right.
He said, he warned Al Gore, don't even come near me or come near Youngstown.
Right.
And they made the transition very quickly, and now Democrats and liberals, they love the largest corporations in America, right? They love Facebook, they love Apple.
They worship power.
Well, it's as succinct as you can put it. What should be the conservative response when you see a supposedly liberal party or a progressive party that's dominated by elites at the top who love corporate power, who themselves are winning more and more votes from the upwardly mobile part of America? And even though the Republican Party has almost tried to repel working class whites from coming in, and in some cases working class Latinos from coming in, they seem to be coming into the party. So what is the role of a conservative in America right now?
Or working class black men, by the way, if I could just say the obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's no reason that African-American men shouldn't be voting for a party that rejects rigid 1970s era feminism or that stands for due process in the rule of law. I mean, there's just no reason. And one of the reasons you see such chaos in our politics right now is because the terms haven't been defined. Sort of nobody sort of knows where we are. I mean, you had the party of the factory owners versus the party of the workers, and now they've inverted, but the leaderships don't really understand that this has happened, and they don't want it to happen, actually, certainly on the Republican side. I mean, they my whole lifetime, you would hear people say, oh, it's the party of the country club. And you'd be like, well, that's appalling. That's totally untrue. And you retreat to the bar at Round Hill and be like, I can't believe they're saying that. It was totally true. And by the way, and you're absolutely, I am not a populist. I think populism is not sustainable. Populism isn't a form of government. It's a warning sign that you've got bad elites. You will always have elites because people are hierarchical. It's in their nature. Dogs are hierarchical. Do you have any? You know that. There's a head dog. There has to be a head dog, period. It's just the way we're made, okay? So every society is hierarchical, including Venezuela and Sweden and the former Soviet Union. I mean, you're not getting around that. The only meaningful question is, how are your elites? Are they impressive? Are they wise? Are they making decisions that help people, or aren't they? And so my critique is really simple. We had a populist election last time, and that ought to be a terrifying wake-up call to anyone who's benefiting from our society right now. If you want to keep what you have, and I do, then you need to pay attention to the forces that gave rise to this thing. Don't ignore it, because it won't get better. It's like appendicitis. It's one of those rare things you can't ignore.
So that was the video that we just watched, and it pretty much laid out various points, for us to discuss. Couple of things that I took notes on was, one, suicide numbers are up. So it seems like a lot more men are kind of choosing to off themselves, in part because, of the stresses that some men have to face. Two, they talked about the wages for men, how men are having less opportunities today. Men are having less opportunities today. And because men are having less opportunities, they're now making lower wages, and a lot of women are making higher wages. And so now it does it become harder for a woman to see herself becoming submissive to a man that earns less than her. And I think that is a real dynamic that currently exists in some of the dating. Secondly, there's just kind of the marriage numbers, but also the fact that children are still being born to kind of single family households, because women, even though they may not opt to get married, they may opt to continue to have a child outside of marriage. That seems to be somewhat of a trend. And is that a healthy trend for us to kind of overlook and get into? And then the other thing is also with obviously policies and things of that nature. Like, are men in a position that he compared and contrasted some things? Are men in a position um, in terms of comparing societies, i.e., the Middle Eastern society was one he drew a comparison to versus the Westernized society. Are men in a position where they're not getting enough sex in part of due to the dynamic of, they're not high earners, they're not really able to communicate with women or appeal to a woman. He made the point that, a lot of women aren't, necessarily into guys who can't really provide that level of security for them. So with that said, those are some of the points that I captured. Is there anyone that would like to break the ice and start to speak to any one of these points, whether or not you agree, disagree, whether or not there's truth or no truth, or whether or not these numbers are just kind of out there?
I'll go ahead and start first. As someone who had to study like psychology, this and the third, who also has parents who are in like the counseling realm and whatnot, those numbers as far as men, with the increase in unaliving themselves, that is very much true. And what other people kind of forget as far as those stats are concerned, a lot of them affect young people. There's like an increased rate of, especially young men, especially young Black men. There's an increased rate of young Black men unaliving themselves because of a lot of different factors that are going on beyond, what some people either A, want to talk about, or B, they don't want to talk about because there's this other video that was out. Probably you guys have probably seen it before about, I'm just going to say Black men just because of the audience that we have right here on this panel. They feel like they don't have a safe space to express what's going on around them, the hardships of what's going on around them, to adapting to, changes in society and in economics and everything else like that. So I will say that those numbers, as far as men unaliving themselves, is very much true. And it is very hard. It's very saddening to hear about that. But yeah, that's it.
Okay. And you guys want to take a crack at that from a man's standpoint?
You know what? I'll chime in on this. I think the numbers that were represented, are a bit subjective because everybody's situation is a bit unique. I definitely agree that the number, especially of Black men unaliving themselves, is increasing at an alarming rate. But I do think in terms of acquiring a mate or acquiring a wife or anything like that, it is really subjective to the individual in terms of what it is that they necessarily bring, whether it's emotional skill set, financial skill set, and so forth. Just keeping it 1,000. I've been broke and I ain't have to worry about some of the aspects of, feeling like, I wasn't able to go ahead and communicate with my peers or just take advice, mentors, or anything along those lines. So it just really depends on the individual circumstance. Financially, we contrary to popular belief, in this day and age, there are more opportunities available than was available 20 years ago, just using that as an example, where, as a man, you definitely have, the ability to go ahead and to increase your earning potential. It just really depends on the individual and their drive to go ahead and strive or to attain that. Now, when you're coupling that with the ability to mate, that aspect is a bit nuanced, simply because if we're just looking at it from a financial standpoint, then all right, cool. All of us started off from a point where we didn't have any money, but I'm pretty sure a majority of us had the opportunity to interact with the opposite sex in one way, shape, form, or fashion to ultimately reach that end conclusion. So in that aspect, it's really individualized in terms of the approach, the comfort, or the ease of approaching and talking to women and everything like that. And then the other aspect is, Tucker Carlson said something that was very illuminating to me, is that women that earn higher, they're still making the option to go ahead and to have children without the option of marriage. So that tells me that there's still, pardon my language, some guys still hitting real quick. You know what I'm saying? If majority of the women in that category who are more financially affluent or make more than their partner still are choosing to go ahead and have sex with somebody to produce a child, then can we really accurately say that the numbers are represented in what is explained to us, from the short video? So, summarize, it's just a bit nuanced, and it's real individualistic, depending upon each Black man's situation.
I agree. Okay, what do you think, Amber?
That was a lot of information. let's start off the middle-aged men, specifically that Tucker Carlson was speaking of. He wasn't talking about Black men, but I do agree with Sky that a lot of younger Black men are committing suicide. But back to Tucker Carlson's point, he was speaking of middle-aged white men. The suicide rate has increased. That is due to, if my research serves me correctly, that's due to the fact that in society now, white men do not have the same power dynamic as before. I would say that there has been a big dent in killing systemic racism and wage gaps amongst different ethnicities. And so that, on top of having to compete with people who were traditionally seen as less than you, I think for a person that has grown up thinking that they were on top and then having to face the world and say, actually, no, I'm actually equal or less than, I think that's what bothers them enough to where they want to unalive themselves. And Tucker Carlson's group of people. To jump to the topic of young men not coupling up with women and being celibate, to be honest with you, nature-wise, a lot of those men don't deserve to be with no women. A lot of those boys dirty,
Yeah.
take baths,
That hurt.
Damn, Amber.
educated. They don't deserve no woman. What Cardi B said, broke boys don't deserve no. That's what she said.
Dang, that's an overgeneralization, but dang.
But let's be honest, if these statistics made it to Tucker Carlson, then it is, and I want to say, this is not the first time that I have heard that in the Black spaces. This is something that has been talked about for a while, but Tucker Carlson has to look at it from the position in society that he's in. So I'm gonna bring it to the position in society that I'm in. Black women, young Black women, are choosing to be single because they do make more money than men, and they're also choosing to be childless, not have children. Maybe white women are still choosing to produce children, but the young Black women are choosing to be childless and husbandless. Women all over the place are saying how they're not birthing. They are saying that these men out here are not worth space in their womb. It is true, and I know me and Mr. B, we argued about this before, at women making more. And it's not because men can't earn or they don't have opportunities. I'm not in agreement of you saying men are not having opportunities. No. It is not that. Men are not taking the opportunities. Just yesterday, I was looking at a statistics of Howard University, where they increased their numbers by 60%, and most of it was girls. You got a college full of females. And then the men who do join, it's like, okay, they go and get their undergrad, and then that is it. They're not interested in higher education in any way. And so that's why women are making more money. It's not because men aren't afforded the opportunities. Men are lazy. Men don't want to continue their education. Somebody have to be extremely dedicated in order to do that. Women are seeing, well, hey, I know when I was coming, college age, it was most of the girls wanted to be nurses. Nowadays, these girls are like, I want to be a nurse practitioner. They're nurse practitioners by the time they're 25, 26 years old. Their mindset is ahead of the game. What 18, 19-year-old boy is like, hey, I want to be an NP or a doctor before I'm 30. They don't think that way. I don't know why that men and boys aren't, thinking ahead in that way. I know, and I use that field for example because I know lots of young girls under 30 that are nurse practitioners, one step away from being doctors if they so choose to be. And so I agree that these girls are not, they're not having that. And as far as the respect aspect, you mentioned, and Tucker Carlson mentioned, women aren't respecting men that make less. It's not so much that women don't respect it. Men don't respect themselves when they make less. That men have an ego. And for whatever reason, whatever the dynamic is, when the woman makes more, the man has an ego. He has to usurp his authority or whatever it is men feel they have to feel strong in the relationship. And that's where the breakdown in the dynamic comes because a woman doesn't respect him. Usually not it. He becomes unbearable. Men become unbearable when there is fragile because it is true. It's true because
Why do you say? Why do they say
they
they become unbearable?
men who make less than their woman become unbearable. For just off the top of my head, a couple I know, the woman made more money than the husband. Okay, they need
Everybody
they,
mute 1 second. Everybody mute your thing except for Amber because there's some feedback coming in. So I don't know if it's because somebody doesn't have an earpiece. If you don't have an earpiece, that means whatever she's saying is gonna come back on your sound. So if you can just mute while she's talking, and then when you want to speak up, just raise your hand. We'll get you right. Go ahead, Amber.
so this particular couple, they needed some work done. They needed some work done. The husband said he would take care of it. He never took care of it. And the wife knew that he didn't take care of it because he didn't have the money to take care of it. But it was something pressing that needed to be done around the house. Well, the woman, because she had the money, she ended up paying for the job to get done around the house because the husband was taking quite a long time to do it. Well, the husband's pissed off because she got it done and it was a task that he was supposed to do. All of that being said, his ego he was mad that she took care of something and he couldn't do it, which boils down to men not feeling man enough to take care of something because of finances, not the woman. She wasn't angry with him that he didn't do it. She just wanted to get done. He's mad at her because she got it done. So if a woman says, I don't want to be with a man who makes less, it's those reasons. It's not specifically the amount. Because if he's not so insecure about his finances, the relationship would be okay. But most men are mean and insecure when they make less than women. So it's not because it's a few different reasons, but most of the time it's not because he just makes less and women are just like, ew, he makes less than me. No, that's not it. Men are mean when they make less than you. Men are spiteful when they make less than you. Men treat you, they act like everything's all good. And when it comes down to it, their egos get the best of them and they treat you terribly. That's what that's about.
Yo, Amber's a fire starter. Go ahead, Terrence. I see you look like you burning. Go ahead, unmute your mic.
Yo,
go ahead and respond.
I want to start by saying this. Like I say, a lot of times when I think of something, I try to start from a biblical perspective. That's where I try to start and then go from there. Men and women were never meant to compete. That was never the objective. So from the dawn of time, it was men that provided. Throughout history, when you introduce the idea that women now contribute in regards to bringing money into the household, that's where we see this problem of men starting to feel, I guess the appropriate word is threatened by the fact that oh, hold on, you don't need me in some way, shape, or form. Now, again, that's by design. I'm not comfortable with the idea that it's blaming men for it, because it's our nature to want to provide. So when we can't, it's like, okay, hold on, something's not connecting here. And then when the woman's doing it, well, quite frankly, from a biblical standpoint, that was never her job. So now she feels like she has some level of authority over him, whether or not women would like to admit it or not. They act in such a way where it's like, okay, you can't do it. You don't got it. I got it. It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? They do it in a way where it's very
Masculine?
no, like it's what's the word I'm looking for?
Disrespectful.
Passive. No, it's passive aggressive. No, it's passive. They do it in a very passive aggressive way. You know what I mean? Where it's like they're letting you know that they make more money than you without continuing to let you know that they make more money than you. They do it in certain ways. They always find a way to remind you, yo, I'm getting money and you're not. Or remember, I make 20 G's more than you a year. Like, you know what I mean? They'll find a way to slip that in there. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Like,
can you elaborate on that by chance, Terrence? Like in the ways that they would passively aggressively, do that?
It's like, I don't know, because I'm not a girl, so I couldn't even it's without words. They do it without words. It's mostly in action, right? And I've seen it where it's almost uncomfortable to watch it happen, because you can almost feel it in the room when it's happening. And as a man watching it happen, you don't know what to say, because the situation is what it is. It's not really your space to say anything about it, but I don't know. I think it's an unfortunate, I think we're at a point in history where we're at a crossroads, because I don't believe that this was the plan. I believe that men were supposed to provide for the household, and that was supposed to be it. The problem comes when now women are now bringing bread to the table as well. They're now competing with men in the workspace, right? So let's say for example, at a tech job, right? Let's say those jobs were, I'm not saying that I don't think women can do the jobs men can do. I just think that we would have been better off as a society if men did those things and women did the things that they do. That's not saying that either of us can't do the things that the other side does. I just think that we had assignments, and now we, as people, decided we wanted to do the other person's job. That's where the problem started. I don't know.
Okay, awesome.
Can I say
Go
something?
ahead, Amber. Yeah.
All right, Amber, you got it.
So
Amber, before you say that, 1 second, before you respond, 1 second. We just got my homegirl Zoe in the call. Zoe is joining the crew of panel. Today we are discussing a topic on the dynamic between men and women. And I wanted to have an equal amount of men's voices compared to equal amount of women's voices, right? I don't want it to be more men talking at women or more women talking at men, because I want to get a balanced perspective. Prior to you joining the call, we watched a video of a man named Tucker Carlson who pretty much had some opinions for men. He had some advice for men. What he was saying is that the statistics show that men are getting less opportunities in the workplace today. And because men are getting less opportunities in the workplace today, that means they're earning less money than women. And women, as a result of dating men who earn less money, have lost respect for those men. And because those women have lost respect for those men, women are now less apt to marry those men. So now those women, even though they're less apt to marry those men, are now still desiring to have children because it's a biological thing. And despite the fact that desiring to have children, they end up having children, but now those children are being raised in single family households where now the man is being diminished, or the value of the man is being diminished. That then contributes to an uptick in suicide rates for men. It now contributes to less men being sexually active. And he compared and contrasted the fact that when less men are sexually active, then you get a lot of problems in society: drug use, crime, just spikes in a lot of things. And he compared and contrasted that from the U.S. versus what happens in the Middle East, and why some of those men seem to be so charged and willing to blow themselves up just so they can, go to heaven and marry 7 virgins. So then he talked about how, men was it under 28 or over 28, how they're not getting any sex. They're not having any sex. Now, Amber, who's about to speak, just raised the point that those men who are not getting no sex deserve to not get no sex because they're the bottom of the totem pole. And apparently, if you're not pulling your weight, then you don't deserve to get the spoils. And now, my cousin Terrence went ahead and weighed in. His point was that men shouldn't necessarily have to, it's not necessarily men's fault that they're not making more money, and that women can be extremely disrespectful when that's not the dynamic. So that's sort of the pretext to you joining on, since you weren't there to catch the earlier parts of it. And Amber is going to add a point from that. So go ahead, Amber. The floor is yours.
So, Terrence, you just said that the problem came in because traditionally men were the providers. So now women can provide. That's where the problem. You keep saying it's a problem, right?
No, but it is a problem.
It's not a problem. And I'm gonna give you. I think about back in the day, like the show Good Times, how there was a whole family and they were super poor and they were working, right?
Right.
They were super poor. So if a woman go out and work and she chooses, you know what, I'm not going to struggle. I'm going to go and get more educated. I'm going to strive for a better job. And remember, Black women have to work 10 times harder than everybody else to get where we are right now, right?
Right.
So if she chooses to go work, because that man, he working and struggling, and he was mean in that show. He was very mean because he was broken and broke, right? So now we realize you don't have to be broke because you can get more educated. You can get a great paying job. You can support children. You can support yourself and children that you would like to have in the future, and not have a mean, broke man next to you. Like, what's the problem?
All right. So real quick, don't they say that the most educated group, and I really believe in the intentionality behind everything that's happened here within the last 100 years or so. The statistic is that Black women are the most educated group in America, right? The most educated group in America.
Yes.
Now, the most stifled group in America overall is Black people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we know that the nuclear family is under attack across all races.
Mm-hmm.
But we can agree that the Black family is taking the biggest hit.
Yes.
Okay, so if you can somehow systemically make it so that Black women no longer need Black men, how would you do that?
Well, to be honest with you,
you would create ways for them to provide for themselves, thus rejecting the need for Black men.
But that came from the research that was done in the Moynihan report. Suggest everybody go read it. Okay. Black men were leaving the homes. They were leaving. They were married with a whole bunch of children, and they were leaving. And so the Black woman had to work to take care of her family. She had to. So
I partly agree on that, Amber. I hear what you're saying, and I understand it's in a report, but I partly agree with that. If you look at that show Nadine, a lot of Black women, especially in the 70s, 80s, especially the 60s, that's when a lot of political turmoil was happening. A lot of Black women were incentivized to have their husbands removed from the home so they can get welfare and everything else like that. And they would even make sure as to go by the home just to make sure that the Black man was not in there in order for them to get more funds. And so, like, I hear what you're saying, but
Moynihan report, because that was only 2 years of that welfare thing that only happened between 2 and 4 years, and then that's when they were suggesting they move. But the reason why they started that to begin with is because the men were leaving on their own. Nobody had to remove them; they weren't there, and that those statistics from that report started from the 1920s. So from the 1920s up until the 60s,
I don't know about that.
it's facts. Go read it for yourself. You don't want to believe me? Go read it for yourself, and you'll see that the welfare started because there were single mothers. There were black mothers, single black mothers, a lot in the black community.
No, black fathers started to leave the home after the effects of Section 8 welfare and the Great Societies Act of 1935 was rolled out by FDR. That's shortly after that. You have to see it develop over the course of time, right? So when it's implemented immediately in 1935, black men are in the household. As a matter of fact, I think there's a statistic that says black people were outpacing every other race in regards to the marital rate. We were married consistently, and we stayed married for long periods of time.
Yes.
You see that change in the late 60s and early 70s. It took time for the welfare state to penetrate the black community. But once it took over, it was wraps, and there was no turning back. It wasn't an audit, like, to say that we started to see black men leave the household as early as the 20s just isn't true. Because what cause would they have to leave?
I also think, if I may step in, I also think too, with the feminist movement and black women thinking that the feminist movement was implemented to help them when it wasn't. I think the dilemma is multifold, because with the feminist movement and in implementing it, black women were thinking, okay, this was something that was going to help them get better opportunities and to provide for their families. But all it did was to provide a divide between black men and women, and black women thinking, well, I don't need a man to do this because I have these opportunities to do it for myself. So I think there were a lot of things that was snuck into the black families under the radar, in the sense of opportunity to do better, but it was more to split us apart and put a wedge between our families to split us, because, as you were saying, they saw that we had our own things going on. We were married, we were making things work, we had our communities, we had our cooperatives, we had, I'm from the Caribbean, so we had the things like, the susu, and we had all these things that we're using in communities to help each other build. Every time your hand come in, somebody would use it to move forward, and they were seeing that these things were helping to build us up despite all the things we had in our way. So they had to come up with different things to insert that wedge. So I don't think it's as simplistic as to say that that black women don't respect black men. I think it was a taught behavior, but I also think there were things that caused that behavior to become in effect.
I agree.
Can I chime in real quick? Because I want to go ahead and respond to something that Amber has stated in regards to the Moynihan report, because I actually read it as well. And a big missing piece of context that's missing from the Moynihan report. So Amber is true and correct when she states that men were leaving the home, but contextually didn't list the reasons why. The predominant welfare state that we see created in this form and fashion was actually created in the 20s, which is factually correct. But the reason why that it was created was because at that point in time in our country's history, all men were required to serve in all of the major wars under the draft. That's the predominant reason as to why all men were outside of the home. At that time, culturally and societally, men were the primary providers of their households, where they were earning enough income capacity to support a multi-unit family, i.e. family of 4, family of 5. When World War I, World War II, the Korean War actually came into place, all men were drafted. They were subject to a draft. This is the primary catalyst of why they were outside of the home. The primary caregiver or the primary provider of a home is no longer present. So they needed to create a system in the state to where, and as families, women, and children were not left indigent. Hence the actual system that we see in place today. Although in today's state and today's form, it's actually being misutilized and incentivized for males to not be present in the household. But if we're going to mention the report, then we need to understand the context and the foundation of why it was created in the first place. So I don't want there to necessarily be, it's not a disagreement with what Amber said, but I'm just trying to give additional context so we all have a well-rounded picture of it.
No, I agree with that. But here's what I would say. I disagree with Amber's point that men are just trying not to be in the home. I do think there are some systems that are put in place to disincentivize men from being in the home and to empower women to be independent of men. And I feel like that's really sort of focused towards certain communities, right? I don't think this is something that goes across the board. I think specifically in the Black community, you know, there's a lot of division that takes place between men and women. And I think that that's happening, you know, by design, if you will. If you are at odds with the man in your household and you now are by yourself, most women are going to need government assistance. Government assistance is going to step in and they will help you at a cost. The cost of them helping you is they now get to kind of direct what happens in your household. So now you're still going to work. You're now having a child that's not being tended to in the home, right? Which means now the child's being raised by their peers in television. Now the television is telling an image that is not one of a united front for children. Because you're one person, you can't do the job of two. You only know how to be a woman. You can't be the male influence to a young man or a daughter. So that child within this community is being raised in an environment where he's being handicapped from other children that he will be competing with. So because he's being handicapped, that now means your child doesn't have the benefit of a two-parent household. But Billy, Joey, Zach, Enrique, Zhang, they have the benefit of a two-parent household. So now our children they tend to be a bit more resentful that maybe one parent was not necessarily in the home. And now you have more societal issues that takes place where our children end up being rebellious. And now you have them blaming the father for not being there, the woman blaming the man for not being there. And so now the issue continues to grow and exacerbate. And it just keeps us in a place where now we're at odds. And now the system benefits at our division because as child support is paid, right, they take a percentage of that child support and they apply it towards the state. It's literally income for the state. And so the fullness of the money doesn't even get allocated to the children, but it still doesn't ever replace the absence of the father from being in that home. So now you have children that have grown up in a handicapped manner, in my view, because they didn't have the benefit of both parents in the household. So now my question is it okay to just say that all the men are sorry? I can't say that's what it is because these men are children of the single mothers that birthed them. So if they're sorry, the whoever the single mothers that raised them,
who's making them sorry,
has to play a part in holding the responsibility for that.
Daddy who wasn't there is the reason, not the one.
Their
daddy.
I disagree.
No, the system makes it impossible for a father to be there.
Terrence, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 20. I'm 27.
Do you want to get married tomorrow? Do you want to start?
If I could, I absolutely would.
But you haven't.
I have not.
Okay, why haven't you?
I have not because I'm not in the financial position as a man to take responsibility for a family.
Okay,
which is the other point.
So you and a lot of men your age feel the same way. So y'all will go out, sleep with women and potentially make babies. You haven't. Sleep with women, potentially make babies, and have no desire to marry them because you, i.e., are not financially able right this minute.
No, wait, time out. That was No, you took a left turn.
No. I'm making a point. Y'all, men in this age group, the age group that we were talking about, where
Yeah.
they're not getting any, they're also not doing anything to get wives. They're not striving to do so. Not saying that's you.
But this goes.
Well, I would say this though, to Emmanuel's point, I was brought up in a 2-parent household
Okay.
where I have my father that gave me that direction, that showed me what it looked like to provide for a family. I wasn't raised by a single mother. So
If the
had I been raised by a single mother, I might have a different mindset. I might
majority
be into
of the
different
time
things.
a woman is single, it's because the man didn't want to get married. It's not because a woman wouldn't say yes if she was.
That's not always the case.
I would say majority of the time, I promise you, I would say 98% of women that are single moms, when they get pregnant, they want to marry that man that they having a baby by. They want a family.
Yeah, but that's
But
Do
incorrect.
y'all
thinking
agree
on
with
their
that
part.
statistic? Do y'all
Just
do
because
y'all agree with that? Are
y'all
women wanting to marry the men that they get pregnant by today?
say it again.
I don't think
I'm
so.
gonna take
No.
a quick survey on the ladies.
but
There's about 4 of you guys in this room. Do you agree with Amber's point that upon having sex with a man, if a woman gets pregnant by whoever it is she was having sex with, that there's the majority of women want to marry the man that impregnated her? Is that stat not inaccurate?
I would say that stat's inaccurate for the fact that a majority of the children that are born out of wedlock, especially in our culture or in black people, whatever you want to call it, 80% of those kids come from less than 15% of the men in our population. So no,
Mm.
I would say no, they wouldn't want to marry that person, because if that's the case, then they're automatically signing up for a polyamorous relationship in a sense, low key. And most of
No,
them
that
don't want to do that anyway, but yet they do it by procreating with less than with a percentage of men who are, it's less than 15, but yet they make up more than 60% of the children.
And you also don't have to be married for your children to benefit from a male figure in the household. Marriage is not, I don't think marriage is the key to your son or your daughter having that positive male effect. I think also too, men have to step up to the plate when they have these situations and demand a place in their kids' life. We see it all the time where people get angry with each other and their kids are being withheld from seeing either parent or whichever side it goes because of anger and bitterness towards the parent, when that shouldn't have nothing to do with the parenting of the kid.
But
And
Zoe,
these
this is where I would weigh in on this. There are plenty of men who desire to be involved in their children's life. What's being said is that the system has been set up in such a way that it
right
makes it even
go to
harder
court
for those men to
and
do that.
ask for visitation and not joint custody, which is two different things. You're going to get visitation. You're going to see the kid every other weekend. Whereas if you ask for joint custody, that means I get 50% of my kids. So that means I can go pick up my kid from school every day. I can do their homework with him and bring him home
But
after,
then the question is, how likely are they to get that 50%
where they're not
granted?
asking. The thing is, they're not
There
asking
are.
for it because a lot of them don't know. I'll be fair. A lot of them don't know that this is something they can do when there's someone to court for the hearings. They don't know they can do that because no one educates them on fully on what their rights are. But the ones that do get it, because the court, it is set up in the law that way that if they request it, they get it,
but
So your
barring
point
that
is
their
you agree
situation.
with Amber's point. So you
No,
agree
I
with
don't.
Amber's
I
point.
don't, because I don't think a lot of these times when a lot of these women get pregnant, they're not thinking about marriage. They're thinking about the good time they were having. Most
right.
of these babies are not planned. So I don't think they're thinking, well, I'm going to have a baby with this guy and, we're working towards marriage. They're enjoying the relationship where they are in the moment and a pregnancy happened. So I don't agree that they're all expecting, the majority of them expecting to get married. But I also think that instead of, we also can, when there's problems, we sometimes tend to get bogged down with the problem and not necessarily, okay, it happened, what is the solution? you know so
Okay.
saying because they're not married is a reason why there's no positive male influence, that is not that I think that's an excuse.
Well, I said that because I think it's crazy that you could commit to a child but not commit to the relationship. Going back to what Terrence said, biblically, I don't know if all of us are Christian.
Yeah, but the child didn't ask to be here, so you have to commit to the child.
The child didn't ask to be here. Sorry, the thunder just shook my house. The child didn't ask to be here. But I just had this debate the other day. Y'all heard Nelly and Ashanti having a baby, right? So apparently, who knows? But it was said, well, there's another relationship or a couple that's bringing a child into the world that's unmarried, right? So we keep talking about all these different breakdowns.
I actually agree with that.
Right? We keep talking about all these different breakdowns of the family, but nobody's getting married. You don't think Ashanti would marry him if he asked? I think she would. So I'm just giving an example of like I don't see why the response men need to be held accountable. To blame a woman for raising boys that was a single mom, I really think it's because their father didn't want to get married or didn't want to commit. I disagree with the statistics that Sky was talking about too. I don't think that that's the case either. But hey.
Okay, Ms. Mocha, go ahead and weigh in. I know she's got to weigh in. We took a quick survey as to what the consensus was. Is it that most women want to actually get married once they get pregnant by a man, or is that an inaccurate statement? What's your thoughts?
So yes and no. I do agree with you, Amber. Excuse me. So I think it is the woman's want. I think the woman does ultimately want to get married. It doesn't depend on whether she gets pregnant to have a child or not. But just generally speaking, for women, we want marriage. So that might grow quicker with, expecting a child, because as women, we get connected emotionally. So I think it's the men, like Amber was saying again, that are not intentionally looking for marriage. I do agree with Amber.
Okay. So we need a tiebreaker. So it's a 2-2. Sky and Zoe don't agree with Amber. Amber and Miss Mocha agree. Isaiah, what's your thoughts?
I ain't got no dog in that fight. You talking about women, bro.
No, but I mean, also we can't speak for men that aspect. We're assuming as women that they don't want to be married. So what say you men? Do you want to get married? Barring financial, we all know that because everybody hopes to be financially set. But barring that, if you were with someone that you get along with, she gets pregnant, what would be your first instinct? Would you make a honest woman out of her?
Ooh, great question.
Define honest woman.
Who's gonna tackle it first?
Nah, let me do that. I got it. Hold on.
You got it.
Wait. So,
huh?
Terrence, that's all you, bro. That's all you.
Stop tap dancing. Answer the question.
I got you. What's up? What was the question? Running back. What was the question?
He wasn't paying attention.
Speak for what you guys' intentions are.
Okay, so cool. Again, I can't speak for all men. However, I do know that most of the men that I'm around want to be married at some point. It's just a matter of finding the woman that I will be willing to settle down with. That's what it's about. It's not a matter of wanting to or not. It's about who, right? So therefore, when you say, if the question was originally, when a woman has a baby with a man, she likely wants to get married to him. Well, okay, you wanted to get married to him. The question is, did he want to marry you? And there's a bit of responsibility on you to gauge that. Does this man want to marry me? Do I see him committing to me? Do I see him caring for myself and my kids? And if you fail to assess that man properly, the onus has to be on you to some regard, because you didn't assess it properly. And I have a little sister, and I have this conversation with her all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to take accountability for, because it's not, you know, this ain't 2,000 years ago where marriages are being arranged. You have a choice. You have autonomy in this. So if you bring some scrub to me, don't expect me to be buddy with him. That's what you chose. There's going to be certain areas where I can't necessarily fault him. I mean, I'm always going to be big brother, but like, you chose that.
It's
You
true.
picked that.
Women, you do have a lot of power in this process. You do get to select who you offer your body
Dude
up
was
to.
not fit, and you ran with him.
And so
I
now,
could've
if
took
it's
that
one
from Jump
thing,
Street.
it's one thing you're engaging in the act. It's another thing now that you decide whether or not you want to conceive that man's baby, right? So now, if you already know you're dealing with a man that may not even want marriage from you, right? It's not that he's going to desire marriage any less. I think there's some societal pressures that changes it. Back in the days, if you guys were fraternizing and getting together in the bedroom, there was social pressures within the culture that would force you guys to get married because there's the responsibility now of a child, and now you guys have to do it whether you want to or not. The pressure is going to force you to do that. I think in other societies, they it's kind of a thing. But nowadays, you know, women have a lot of power with regards to who they conceive for, right? And sometimes y'all are not necessarily choosing. You're not going into it with the mindset of, oh, I'm having sex with this guy because I intend on marrying him and starting a family. You're having the sex with the mindset of, okay, he caught me at the right time. You know what I'm saying? And I'll give it to him because
And you can't be
the
mad
time
because
that
I was
works
trying
out.
to be at the right spot at the right time.
I was just, you know what I mean? Like
And
you
back
know what I'm
to
saying?
Carl, and back to
Hey,
Tucker
yo.
Hey, yo.
back to Tucker Carlson's point that these young men ain't getting because they are wising up and saying, "I'm not going to share my womb with a dust ball. I'm not doing it."
Nah, 20% of y'all still is by the numbers.
They said they're not.
20% of
These
y'all.
girls said they're not giving birth to no dust ball babies. They're not doing it.
The
That's
metric
why
said 20%.
the boys alive in themselves because they dirt balls.
20% of the dirt balls are still getting cheeks.
But they not.
That's
Actually,
100% fact.
They not.
So if we gonna talk about accountability, it should be 0% of the dirt balls. So it still come down to accountability either way.
Women,
I
well,
agree.
those girls are saying that they have needs, but they're not producing children.
20% of the dirt balls are still getting cheeks.
But
If
they
it winds up with a child, you knew he was a dirt ball from the jump, and you still let him smash. We don't gotta be politically correct no more. We could keep it 1,000. You still let dirt ball smash. You let dirt ball smash.
no,
You
no,
let dirt ball smash.
no.
Okay, I have something to say.
Oh,
Only thing that I'm saying, and I'll pass the floor over, is the fact that there is a level of accountability that actually goes both ways. Tucker Carlson made a
Okay.
good point. Like, yo, at the end of the day, yo, the cats under 30 that are not getting any play or any action and are not in a financial ability or state that they desire to be in, that accountability is on them. I got an OG from the hood. It was like, yo, at the end of the day, you got 3 strikes against you. Either you ugly, you short, or you ain't got no money. You
Tough.
can't play all 3 of those at the same time. You can change your appearance by working out, grooming yourself. You can go ahead and increase your finances by picking up an extra hustle. There's 24 hours in a day. At the end of the day, you got to work 3 McDonald's jobs to get your ends up real quick to support everything. But you're ugly. There's certain things you can't really change on that, but you can't be failing at all 3. Now, I was broke. I'm 18. I'm broke. I have no problem with going ahead and getting some action because I can be a pretty boy. I can go
still
ahead and
pretty
work.
nigga.
I
Yeah.
can find myself to be consistent. But no, and I'm just saying all of that because there's an accountability on both sides. Like homegirl, you said, yo, you know what? The young females of today are not going up for the dust ball, and I know I'm a dust ball because I see the homie that got the G5 already at 22, and he pulling up, he blinged out. I now got a choice that I gotta make. Either I want to be with him clapping, being a part of the 20% dust balls real quick, pretty dust ball, or I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna sit woe is me real quick and then try to unalive myself because I didn't have the lack of effort or determination to upgrade myself. So The unaliving part is just more, me trying to find the easiest way out from putting in the work. But we all started broke. We all started from a position where you had to work to attain the things that you obtain.
Facts.
I just think that it's an accountability from both aspects. There are some nuances that are associated with it as well. Like from a man's perspective, coming out inside of the world, we don't necessarily have that support system. At 18, you're like, all right, you a man now, you got to figure it out for yourself. A lot of us don't come from dual parent households where essentially you now have to figure it out on your own, versus as a female, you may have more of a bit of that support from your family, whether or not it be dual parent or single parent aspect. You're given a little bit more leeway. We're automatically having to hit the ground running. So not only I'm hitting the ground running with no training or expertise or nothing, but I'm a dust bucket. You know what I'm saying? I'm overweight. I ain't got no money. You know what I'm saying? Of course, it's going to lead to some cats that are choosing the easiest route to, take the express train up out of here real quick. But then we have to hold them accountable for them choices as well. Like, hey, listen, if you applied yourself, maybe you would have got out of the 20% dust bucket category and went to the 80% of, outstanding individual working toward your finances, working toward, being a husband in the future, anything along those lines. I'm done.
Go ahead, Miss Smoker. It's you, and then Terrence, you got it. What did you have to say, Miss Smoker?
Okay, I almost forgot. Thank you for that history lesson there. Okay, so just want to say something about the dust bucket remark. So let's be fair, okay? It is not entirely the woman's fault at first if she doesn't know the dust bucket's intentions, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't know what a man's intention is except for what they're telling us. All the goodness, all the things, the right things that we want to hear. But it is the woman's fault after learning that man is a dust bucket over time and then choosing to stay with him and thinking she's going to change him. Then we could take accountability for that.
So when does that timeline start? Because most
I
of the
don't
time,
know.
y'all know that dude ain't worth nothing
I know when it
before
starts.
you push the baby out.
It starts when
It
you.
it starts when it's too late, when she's already emotionally attached.
Then whose
Yeah,
fault
but
is that?
The dust
that's
bucket.
what I'm saying.
How is it
Thank
the
yeah.
woman's fault if you have
Started with
your reaction is your responsibility at the end of the day? That's
That's
it.
And that's
yeah.
I'm glad somebody said something about responsibility. That's what a lot of men are not taking.
The thing is, us women love
They
men.
don't want to be responsible.
We
You
fall in
knew I
love
was
with
broke from the jump. What you talking about? You knew I pulled up to the date on the bus. You knew at the end of the day we couldn't eat at PF Chang's. You knew that we went, you know what I'm saying, to the Cheesecake Factory for the first date. You knew that from the jump. That time
but
started then. You
we
let me talk you out some cheeks, yo. That's on you after that. You made a
know it's
conscientious
not
decision
that. It's
to go
not.
with the foolery.
I think
Like, come on now.
You said, yo, he's wavy.
true to
I might as well.
the
no, black women especially have to deal with the gold digger thing.
It's not that cookie
We
cutter.
if we aspire to have someone who's well off, we're a gold digger. But then we run the risk of dealing with potential dudes and dudes that saying they're going to do this, they're going to do that, but they're really not, because you never really know anyone's true intentions. They tell you all these things. It sounds nice to you and you want to be supportive and be there for them when they're down. But how long do you do that for? And then in the meantime, you're seeing all the dust bucket tendencies, but you're like,
Mhm.
okay, I want to support my man. I want to be there for him while he's trying to do better. So it's not that simple. Like, okay, yeah, he was a dust
Right.
bucket and from the jump, and you just still
We
didn't.
don't know you a dust bucket at the beginning because y'all be lying.
So okay.
There
So
needs
you
to be a
only
little
know he's a
grace on both sides. You know?
so you only know he's a dust bucket on month 9 when the baby comes.
When you're pushing his baby out.
At that point, he becomes a dust bucket.
no.
What happened to all the months prior to that?
It depends.
Every time he was laying down pipe.
When the person colors come out.
Yo, so every time he
It's
asked,
sad,
every
but
time
it's
you
true.
asked him to come over, every time you asked him to come over to
No.
the crib, and he was like, "Nah, my house dirty," but he came over to yours. That wasn't a red flag. Every time he was like, "Yo, let me learn more about you," and he gave you these vague answers. You ain't know that was a red flag, but you still chose. Every time he was like, "Yo, you know what kind of work you do?" and he was like, "Yo, you know what? I do this, this, that, and the third. I'm a jack of all trades." You ain't catch that as a red flag.
Or every
Every
time you
time,
asked, "Hey, what are we? What are we doing?" and he danced
you
around the
know what?
question.
I'm going with the flow, baby. Yo, yo, stay with the vibes. We ain't gotta mess up a good thing we got going on.
Oh,
You let him. You let
just
the.
trust don't deserve the attention. That's it. You don't deserve it. That's nothing. You don't get nothing. Nothing. You don't pay bills, you get nothing.
All right, so time
Nothing.
out. Let's reel it back in. I think sometimes we get into this conversation because we're not being intellectually honest with each other. I think real talk, we're not. I think there are your flesh speaks, and a lot of times women, y'all be having urges. Sometimes y'all will use willpower to try to deny yourself, and then you come to a point where you don't even care. That brother better just perform. And there's a lot of times where y'all know there's certain calls you put in to dudes you wouldn't take to the gala, to dudes you wouldn't take home to mama. You know what I'm saying? Because all that withholding of yourself, and then when the flesh start talking to you, your body start talking to you. Next thing you know, homie's the sneaky link that you're calling late night that you don't want nobody to know about, but who you've been letting him raw dog and bust up inside of you crazy, right? And we're not being honest. You're not being honest with the fact that, hey, your flesh was weak and you didn't even care that the dude just got out of jail, that he was
Gross.
out here in these streets hustling. You ain't care about none of those things. It didn't cross your mind. You know what I'm saying? That maybe I shouldn't let Jamal bust up inside of me at will. We're not even in a relationship. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't even care about that. So a lot of times you got to be honest with yourself to say, look, sometimes we do careless and reckless things. And as long as we don't acknowledge that we're doing that, that cycle will never change because everyone's in a state of denial. In the same way, I can understand where the ladies are coming from by saying, yeah, some of these dudes are sorry. You know what I mean? If you a dude and you just gonna be outside, you know, you partaking in a relationship with a lady and you getting in or getting it in with her, you have to understand that there is a possibility that you can potentially father a child by that woman. And if that happens, you do have to take the responsibility to man up to that child. That has to happen. A lot of men don't do that. But another thing too, ladies, you guys are the bearer of life. You get to determine which men you give birth to, you replicate. You feel what I'm saying? If you think these dudes are dust buckets, they ain't worth a lick, he's not trying to marry you, why would you have his child in the first place?
I agree with that. Baby chop shop it is.
So, but we're
Yeah,
not being honest because now we talk about it from this high level. We're talking about it from such a high level that it makes it unrelatable because it's like, as much as we talk about it, a lot of us here may have been in a situation where we compromise our values. We wasn't looking at
That's
what
it.
she could bring to the table as a potential wife. We was just like, look, I'm trying to get this off. You know what I mean? Like, if we're just being honest with ourselves, right? Or you wasn't thinking about Jamal as a husband to be. Jamal just looked tall, he was dark, and he was handsome. And he caught you at the right night when you was feeling when you was feeling
That's
it. Jamal looked like he was packing.
that's I agree with that. That's careless. I don't like the sneaky link thing. I don't like any of that. I don't think no woman should be careless and reckless with her body, especially with a man who is you don't know what's going on. You got too many STDs out here and too many crazy other females out here to be just willy nilly giving your body to some extreme random dust ball. Like that, I do agree with. But for the majority of women who take pride in their selves and their body and respect the health of themselves, we're not doing that. Y'all may be lying. Y'all will
What does
pretend
the
to be
man lie to you about?
y'all will be
Who hurt you, Amber?
y'all will be pretending that you want a family and you want this and that just so you can get in the draws. That's it. Y'all will
nah,
lie. Y'all keep
So hold on,
lying,
let me
lying.
ask y'all a
you
question.
don't
I'm
gotta
gonna
lie
ask
to know.
the ladies in the building a question.
Now, real
For
quick,
a man to
we
get
don't
in
have
the
to lie
drawers,
about wanting kids.
does he have to tell you that he wants a family with you? Or have you ever been in a situation where the man never had to tell you that? It was just like mutually agreed that y'all wanted to get with each other. I see y'all over here calculating the thoughts. Who's going to respond first?
You know,
I have no problem. I will go first.
Everybody like, yo,
Yeah.
I'm not about to tell on myself.
I no, no, I'm not. I'm not telling my business. Don't get that twisted. That's definitely not happening. I'm not telling my business. But no, I don't. I feel like if, especially for women, and this is just maybe just speak on myself, if someone is able to engage you in a conversation and mentally stimulate you, that is already half the battle for dudes right there, then and there. Pretty much. That's half of it. Is if you can have a good conversation and you can mentally stimulate her, the body's gonna follow. That's just how women are wired. If you can tap into, because women process more words a minute than men. That's why, Amber, when you were saying, I don't understand how men blah blah, if you look at it, like their frontal lobe doesn't really finish developing until after like 25, 26.
my joint
And that's
just
your
got
processing center. So like, I mean,
my joint just got that.
upload it, okay?
Hey, yo.
I mean, no, but
No, but seriously, so when you take that into account and you're taking someone who processes words, however, like 10 times the amount than what their male counterpart would. If I was a dude and I had to go based off of strategy, I'm gonna be honest, that would be my strategy. I'm gonna just talk you enough and get you to laugh a couple times and boom.
talk you out the drawers.
So if that's the case, then wouldn't it be apropos for a woman to have her P's and Q's on the point of being like, I mean, you cute, but you're not that cute as far as like to talk me to something. Like, maybe just because I think about it that way, because I had 3 brothers and I had my dad, and my dad told me straight up, hey, yo, there are gonna be plenty of dudes that are gonna try and talk us in the third, blah, blah, blah. When you hear this, you might hear this. Be aware. So I don't know.
Yeah,
that's my take.
I just want to say I don't think to the point of like talking to women, and at least I've never arrived to the point where I had to get to the point of talking about babies and marriage to get the draws. That's crazy. If you got to go to that point, brother, you struggling already.
I've never had. Have you? Okay, let's ask them in a minute. Isaiah, did you ever have to promise a woman a baby and a marriage before you can get in the drawers?
Nah, I'll be honest with you. I was a dust bucket coming out real quick, but I had to get my life right. Like all I had was a voice. All I got to do is just whisper nothing in your ear. All right, we're good.
Dude.
Literally say nothing, just whisper. Nah, it wasn't no promises. I don't even know where I'm gonna be at the next moment or so. You got my attention right now.
Exactly.
So no, I've never done that.
End of the day, for most women, we already know from jump from meeting a guy if we're gonna have sex with him or not. It's just a
Yep.
Drop the mic, Zoe.
I've been told that.
Drop the mic. 7 seconds is all it takes. That's what the statistics say. So, finally, we got one honest woman in the building. What's up with the rest of y'all,
So if you trying and you just not going, because we had no intention of having sex with you. If you got the cheeks, it's because we was gonna give it to you anyway. You just got to the point where we was willing to give it.
So, you just snitched on all the ladies real quick.
Just told all the ladies business, Zoe. Yo, they might be looking for you tomorrow.
Don't look my way.
Use that accountability thing.
Or you said the right thing, or the voice triggered us that day, or you said something, whatever it is, you caught us at the moment. If it happened, you were going to get it. It was just a matter of when. And that's just facts.
Are y'all denying that, ladies? Is she telling a lie?
No, she's being factual.
Miss
Usually,
Mocha.
it's like this. It's like between 7 seconds and 5 minutes. Most women know. That's just what it is.
We know. That's why there's dudes that for years will be pursuing us, and we never give them the time of day because we know he only.
He don't got it. He don't got it. So, Amber, are you being dishonest with all this extra hoopla you created when the facts is that
I'm not dishonest. I'm not being.
So hold on. What she just said, how does that weigh in with what you got to say now?
Well, I
About
was just
a man got to be talking to about, starting a family with you for you to be willing to have a baby with him or to give up the cheeks to him. He got to promise you the sun, the moon, the stars.
where that came from in the conversation, but I never said that. I'm just saying. You just
You just said that.
Somebody
I said
said it.
that.
Somebody said it. Yeah, B. You was like,
Somebody said it.
You in order to draw. I
Somebody
didn't
said
say
it.
that. So I don't know where that
no,
came from.
I stretched it a little bit. I was being funny, but no, I'm saying you did say that most of the time these dudes have to be coming and lying to you. He has to tell you that he's going to be providing, he's going to marry you, he's going to do this in order to have sex with you, and that's
No.
not true. A lot of times, y'all already know.
When I said that the men be lying, they don't be saying stuff like that, like, "Oh, I'm gonna marry you" and all this type of stuff. That's not those aren't the things that they're lying about. And they're lying about their character. They're lying about their true intentions with you. They don't have any intention to go that far with you, but they're doing things that make you think that that's what they want. And that's what we want ultimately, like Miss Mocha said. And so we fall into it. That's the lie that I'm talking about. The true intention behind it is that most men don't have any intention. And so we're falling in love with what we feel, or what we think in that moment might be more than just a consensual sexual relationship. That it could be more than that. For me, I can't sleep with somebody without. If I was to get pregnant, whoever I'm dealing with, I couldn't sleep with them not knowing that I wouldn't want to have a baby with them. So if I slept with somebody, I would comfortable having a baby with them. Does that make sense? Like if I was to get pregnant with anybody that I slept with, I'm comfortable having a baby with. That's just, I don't know about everybody else, but that's just me. That's why my position was most women want to get married if they get pregnant, right? That was why I had that position, because I have never slept with somebody and been like, "Oh, ew, I could never have his baby." Because why am I sleeping with you? That's just
But having somebody
everybody you
baby and
slept with,
marrying them
you
is
were willing to
different.
marry. Everybody. So what you're saying is everybody you gave the box to.
Not everybody. Not everybody.
But that just proves the point.
Right.
I had to grow up too now. Come on, I had to grow up too. So
But I
So
get
there was
what
a point in your life.
Amber is saying. If more women actually thought about, would this person be somebody I want to have a child with or marry with, before they gave them the box, we would have less of what we have today. But a lot of people are really just out here just having sex because, oh yeah, sex is enjoyable, but they're not thinking long term. They're just like, I'm enjoying the moment with this person. And they're not taking the necessary precautions, and the precautions has to happen on both sides, because like Terrence said, he's not in financial position right now to support a family. So why would you run up in a girl raw? Why would you do that?
Well,
Why would you do
Well,
it?
why
Even
would you let him?
that she's on birth control, self-preservation is best. So why wouldn't you put a condom on?
I kind of got to go against you on this one, because you said between 7 seconds and 5 minutes, you knew I was getting it real quick,
Right,
based
but
off if we caught you at the right time. So if you're not having that mindset during that 7 seconds to 5 minutes, you can now not make it retroactive, but be
no.
like, well, all right.
You can still get it with a condom, though. You don't we don't have to
Yeah,
make
condoms break. We know, although contraceptive is 92% effective, this is
with
another 8% that it isn't. So it's still a
sir,
relative risk on both
sir,
sides.
sir.
So again, in that initial 7 seconds to
If we
five
go for
minutes,
birth control, it's highly unlikely that we're gonna make a baby. Highly unlikely. So even if she was to say, I'm on birth control, why wouldn't you say, all right, ma, so am I, and put that condom on?
how do we get the condoms? I thought 7 seconds, I already had it. See, these are conversations that need to be had beforehand before you even engage inside of the act. And that's what I'm trying to go ahead and to illuminate real quick. If Amber is saying that, okay, the ultimate intention is to go ahead and to get married and carry or anything like that, then it starts at the foundation with you even thinking that somebody is attractive enough to want to go ahead and embark on that endeavor with, from a sexual aspect. if that thought process isn't there from there, now you're trying to make it retroactive. It's kind of
No.
you're
My point is not necessarily having sex to have a family and have kids. My point is, if you want to have sex, do so, but
Responsibly.
do it responsibly. That is my
of course
point of view.
agreed.
So I'm saying,
Mhm.
as a man who knows that he's not ready for a family, who is not financially stable, who doesn't want the responsibility to have a kid, why would you have sex with someone without protecting yourself?
I have a question. One that's foolish. I totally agree with your point, Zoe. But I do have a question because you got to understand the kid doesn't happen the moment you guys had that act. You got to you see that kid through. And right now, as a woman, and I get it. I guess for some people they don't necessarily believe in abortion, things of that nature. But there's a lot of preventative measures that can be taken. But also, you know, you don't have to have a baby for a man that you don't want to have a relationship with. Yet a lot of women do,
But the
Agreed.
and that's
men
the
do,
point.
but the men do
That's
too. Have
but
babies.
no, but time out. That speaks to the point that Tucker Carlson was trying to make in his clip. He's saying women have lost the desire because they've lost respect for a man who's earning less than them. So they've lost the desire to even want to marry a man.
But
Right.
that's a man's
But
problem, though.
it's not going to change. It doesn't change the fact that mentally they're wired to want to be a mother. So as long as they can fulfill that, like as long as they can be a mother, sometimes they don't even care who they have the baby by.
Right.
But it's not my fault that I went and educated myself. I was able to get a higher paying job and make more money than a man. You have the
I
ability
agree.
to do the same thing. So that shouldn't be a point held against women that because we now make more money than men, that men now some feel some type of way. Because all that is speaking to is ego. Is
So
the
the
man's
question is
ego
this:
being bruised.
would you, as a
And
woman, then compromise your values? Would you, as a woman, take the position of, even though I make more money than this man, I will still marry this man because I'm not just judging what he earns, I'm judging his character, the value of him, how he can help, how he'll be useful to the household. Is there a disconnect when women solely make the marriage decision on the basis of just that man's ability to provide security for her?
I think it's
It's the men
multifaceted.
that don't want.
A man, if a man is
That's not what he's
emotionally
saying.
mature, if he's I don't have a problem with my spouse making less money than me if he's more emotionally mature to handle that, because the
Okay.
problem is a lot of men don't are not able to handle that, and that is where the problem comes in. If both parties are emotionally immature, handle their positions wherever whatever it may be, then it can work, because everybody has their roles to play and you guys define your roles in your relationship. But if I have to feel like I have to dumb myself down to make you feel like a man because I'm making more money, of course there's going to be problems.
I disagree with that too. I'm with you on that. I agree that a woman should not have to ever feel like she has to dumb herself down for the sake of accepting a man. But I
When
also
you
don't
say
feel like a woman should. I also don't feel that a woman should feel justified to throw the fact that she makes more money than her in a man's face. That would be like marrying a jerk, a
But
man
that's
who doesn't respect you.
exactly,
You
that's
know what
why I
I'm
said
saying? Who treats you like crap simply because he thinks he makes more money than you and you need him,
right,
right?
but
I
that's
would
where
not advocate a woman to be in that environment. And this is part of the problem. See, where we go is some of the guys who do make a lot of money end up feeling like, hey, I got such a wide range of women who are seeking a man like myself who makes more than enough money that I can essentially pick and choose who I want to be with. And because a lot of women lead off with that man's financial status, then they're picking a guy that may not necessarily be compatible with them, that may not work well with them. So because you put so much emphasis and so much weight on how much he earns, you put less emphasis on who he is and his character. And now you're marrying him based on his means and not marrying him based on how he treats you, the type of man he is, his integrity, right? And so now you run into a situation where that man may end up going to cheat with multiple women. That man may end up doing some other things. Go ahead, Tim.
broke
But
men
we
cheat.
all know that how a man long term, not upfront, but long term, the way a man treats a woman versus how he provides to her takes a backseat. Long term. So I could treat you like a queen, but if I don't provide shit, you're gone. And we know that's the
I
utmost truth.
disagree.
Bro, they're gone, bro. Out of
That's
here.
a fact.
Quick, fast. So I say that to say this.
I disagree. It depends which marriage you're in, bro.
Nah, hold on. I say that to say this.
And what's your
There's a saying that goes, women and children are the only people walking the earth that are loved unconditionally. Unconditionally. Men are only loved under the condition that they provide something. As soon as I no longer provide something, they're gone.
But it's up to you to determine what I want you to
true,
provide.
ladies? Let's take a quick inventory. We're gonna take a quick inventory just on that point.
When I say provide, I'm talking about financially.
Yeah, sometimes it's not financially. If you make me feel secure as a man and you take care of what we agree upon for you to take care, that's providing.
It's finance, because if shit hits the fan, who does everyone look at when shit hits the fan?
The man.
If the family's going
everyone
down,
looks
who
at the
does everybody
man.
look at?
That's as far as
Everyone looks
hierarchy
at
in
the
the
man.
household. Everyone looks
So
at him
the
first.
minute we're broke, busted, and disgusted, no one's looking at mom.
I would argue that, but okay.
No one's looking at mom when we're broke, busted, and disgusted.
It's a true statement.
They're looking at dad first.
Yeah.
And if dad fails, then they'll look at mom. But they're looking at dad first.
No,
so
they blame
dad can no longer provide. Mom, son, daughter, and everyone else is up and out of there. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. Fast. Only women and children are loved unconditionally. Men are loved under the condition that they provide financially. The second I can no longer provide financially, now not the second, but you can only hold that out so long. Women only hold that out so long because at the end of the day, as a I'm not even a father yet, but I can almost feel the understanding of when I give my daughter away to another man, I'm giving him away, and I'm giving her away. Me giving her away is essentially saying you are now responsible for her. I don't care about the emotional part. I always got her emotionally. Financially, you are now responsible for her. If my daughter's going hungry, nigga, that's on you. My daughter don't got a roof, nigga, that's on you. That's how it's always going to be. You feel what I'm saying? So it's like, yo, there's no excuse for a man when he's no longer providing financially. Who am I going to run to? No one's giving me no slack when I can't provide financially. Usually the last person that holds on to you when you down and bad is your wife. But she's also going to be she's gonna be the last person that leaves you, right? But it's a pro and a con because she's the last person that leaves you. Once it hits the fan for real, she's up and out of there. If it's unbearable, she's gone. She's not sticking around forever. The man will stick around if shorty's down bad.
You agree with that, Isaiah?
Shorty loses her job, I'm not leaving her.
That's true.
A man loses his job, shorty's up out of there. If he can't figure it out.
I'm not going to say that's across the board. The board. There are some women that actually stick it out. There are some women that stick it out. I don't want to say
seldom.
It's rare. Go ahead.
It's rare, and I think it also depends on what you were saying before, Zoe, the maturity as far as the two of you in a relationship. I can speak for both of my parents in the sense of there was a time where my mom was making more money than my dad. But as kids, we didn't see a break in the family dynamic because
that's
at the end of the day,
time. That's most of the time that's the case.
Yeah. But
do you realize, hold on, let me make this
not make
no, time out, but let me make this point. Let me make this point. You know, in Spanish households, a lot of times the women make more money than the men, but their women don't leave them. So it seems to be something that's prevalent in the Black community more so than any other community. You could say in Asian communities, it's like that too. There's a lot of Asian women who make a lot of more money than their husbands do. Middle Eastern community as well. There's a lot of women who make more money than the men. But depending on which culture they're a part of, they weigh it different. For some reason in the black community, if a woman makes more money than the men, it's like a shameful thing. But in the Spanish community, you see those day workers that be out at U-Haul trying to get you to book them to move something for them. Their women sometimes work jobs and they make more money than their husbands, but you don't see sort of that disrespect or that disdain from their women to them as much as you see it in our community. Why is that?
I don't know how many times we got to keep saying it's not about how much money it is, how much money the man makes. It's about how he treats, how he treats the woman. And Terrence said earlier that women will do things that's passive aggressive that let the man know, but couldn't really provide an example that Sky asked him to provide, because at the end of the day it's his ego. She could be innocently doing something and his ego is going to say she's being passive aggressive and disrespecting because I make less money. The lady probably was just sweeping the dirt out the front door, and his ego gonna tell him, "Oh, she make more money than me. She thinks she can sweep like that." Like, it's y'all's ego that's the problem. It's y'all's ego that's the problem. Black women hold black men down on everything, every single front. It's not that. So when a woman says that she would prefer a man that makes the same or her or more, it's just to eliminate the issue with money, to eliminate the arguments, to eliminate the egos, because it shouldn't be an ego here about money or finances if you make more money than me. Problem solved.
Now I'm going to ask a question. So now I'm going to ask a question because I want to connect the dots here. So if that's the case, you have men who obviously are very few who make more money than some of these women, because as you're seeing, the statistics are growing where Tucker was saying that there's less opportunities for men to earn a living. And because for them, they're not able to earn a living for whatever reason and make as much money as their wives do, a lot of times the women are choosing or opting to get with a guy who earns more. Now, normally if all the women are opting to go to the guys who earn more, that means that the guys who earn more have more women at their disposal. So now when those guys end up exercising their options with those women end up being mad that those guys couldn't remain faithful to them. But now it's because if you guys already outnumber men, you know what I'm saying, by a wide amount, because there's more women than there are men, and now a good percentage of the women all want the certain little bit of guys who making a high amount of money. Why do y'all get mad if that man is now outside servicing different women, dealing with different women?
Who's getting mad?
Servicing different women is crazy.
Who's getting mad?
Women get mad. Do women get mad? So let me ask you a question.
As outliers.
Let me ask you a question.
Majority of black men, black women are trying to hold their black man down. Majority of them. Okay. Majority of them. The outliers, you guys are speaking on outliers. Majority of black men are holding black men down. We don't care if he makes less than us. But black men, yes, I will give them. They have a lot on their shoulders, societal pressures on their shoulders, and they allow their ego to create issues that are not there sometimes. And then sometimes us as women, we sometimes allow the fact that we have accomplished these things to get in the way. But majority of us are not out here saying that, okay, because I make more than you, you can't tell me what to do. Most of us are not doing that.
Here's what I would say about it. I don't think it's the issue is the fact that the women earn more money than the men. I think the issue is the fact that women throw the fact that they earn more money than their men in their man's face. A man's not mad at you. A man.
But that's not what happens, though. I'm saying it.
Isaiah,
So,
go ahead and weigh in.
That doesn't happen.
It does happen.
Like that.
That's why I was asking for an example of like when you
Because
say it happens passive
how you
aggressive, like how does it happen passive aggressive?
Right.
example. Example, went out
Giving
to right? Your man is not working, so he doesn't have any money. But for example, you you split some money on
What's
his
up, dog?
card when he will pay for the meal instead of you, so he doesn't look like he don't got stuff together at the meal. A
Okay, so I
mature
got a quick
man
question.
like, all right, my girl got my back. An immature one be like, oh, there she go, flexing like she got to take care of me, like I'm not a man, like I can't do myself. That's the difference. Most
Okay,
of us
so
not doing that. What
I have a comment and a question, real quick, Mr. B.
okay, go ahead. So
So, I
before you
mean,
ask the question, Miss Mocha, let me just Garvin just joined the call. I want to get an equal amount of men's voices along with the equal amount of women's voices. Garvin, just so you can catch sort of the context of what we're talking about. We're talking about whether or not a woman earning more money than her man is an issue for the woman. I mean, are they having a hard time submitting to a man that they earn less than them? And so this is where we are in the discussion.
Generally,
So
yes.
you
Generally,
think
yes. Yeah.
okay.
Generally,
Now the question
less.
is that just? Is that right? Is it right for a woman to take issue with that? And is a man's ego problematic once that's the case?
A man's ego would be problematic in that case because, generally speaking, a man tends to want to make sure that he's providing. A man's normal job, even biblically, is to provide for his household. So what happens then is it's almost like, unfortunately, that the women infringe on that. But also, some men are not stepping up to the plate and doing what they have to do as well too. And in terms of that, in order to be on equal footing, a lot of men, especially black men, have not how do I put this? Have not education is the key to getting into equal footing and actually, which leads to open more doors, which leads to generating more a higher income and
You're
higher
saying they
salary.
haven't positioned themselves to succeed in that aspect.
Correct.
Okay.
Some haven't,
And
unfortunately.
so for those men, because
But that
another
comes with
part of this
another set of
conversation.
questions, another set that black men have a lot more to deal with than black women as well too. Black women, not to say that their path is easier, but you know, there's it's just different, unfortunately. But it's
Okay.
harder to keep a black man focused. Black women generally are very, very focused. They know what they want, and they seek it, and they go after it, and they do a great job at it, and they should be rewarded for it. And unfortunately, that's led to a difference in pay scale.
True. Okay, so now what was your question, Miss Mocha?
all right, I forgot the question, but
Oh my bad.
um, if I could just add to the comment about um, when a woman throws how much she makes more than her man in her man's face. Um, I mean, that just over
Do you
time.
acknowledge that black women have the tendency to do that? Do you
I'm
acknowledge
going,
that?
yes, and I'm going to say why.
Okay.
So it could just be the fact that the women over time loses respect for that man because that man's not stepping up to provide. When you losing respect for your man, those are the type of behaviors you know what I'm saying?
You're gonna experience.
Arguments, things being thrown in the face. I don't know. I mean, it's crickets right now. Yes or no?
I think the key word there was you said over time, and that's what I've been trying to articulate this whole time. It may not be at first, and this is why I said it's not necessarily how a man can treat you great throughout the whole relationship. It happens over time. You can only a woman's only going to hold a man down for so long before it's like, yo, my man, get it together, brother. Like, I love you, but nigga,
Joe Smith's wife.
whether it's on year 1, year 2, year 20, or year 25, at some point she's gonna be like, yo, I'm sick of this shit.
Here.
Yeah, facts.
It's only a matter of when. So I'm not saying that women don't do it. All I'm saying is that I'm not saying that they always do it. I'm not saying that they don't do it. I'm just saying it's like, yo, it's a matter of when she gets tired of it.
Facts. And black women have like one of the highest like tolerance, and they put up with a lot.
Yeah.
But I've been saying.
Okay, everybody's right.
But it doesn't eliminate the tolerance.
When they get fed up, you know this has been not 6 months, not a year, not 5 years. That could be going on 10 years.
It's been a long time coming.
That, you know, she over here, in that 10 years, she went from 50,000 to 125, and you still at 10,000, or you still at 25 or $30,000.
Right.
Yo, E, but don't that lead to my dustball comment? You knew I was a dustball from the
I was
jump
just about to say that.
Like, can I get some love over here on that
Yes,
as well? 'Cause that
now
actually
she's
just proved my
accountable
point.
for staying that long.
So now that means that she should be accountable, because the point is you chose to have a baby with a man that you knew was beneath you, and then now you're complaining that his ass ain't growing fast enough for you, and now you mad at him. When you
So don't get mad when she leaves.
Go ahead, Isaiah.
I don't even like that because with that, what we do is we eliminate a lot of honest work that men can do, right? A lot of honest work that men can do. Electricians. Now, some of them dudes make bank. Don't get me wrong.
A lot of bank.
But it's capped out at a certain point. You get capped out. And at some rate, certain degrees will surpass my ability to be a good tradesman. Right? So what I'm saying is I could be a great plumber. I could be a great carpenter, right? And I'm good at my trade. This is what I've been trained to do since I was 16 years old. I've always done it. My dad did it. And I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. This is what I know how to do. This is how I put bread on the table. But now my wife is getting degrees and she's doing this, that, and the third, and so on and so forth. Hats off to her. I'm happy for her. Just because she was doing that doesn't mean I was going to change what I did. It just so happens that the trade that I'm in is capped out. And at some point in time, she was always going to make more bread than me based on the path that she selected for herself. So once she's settled into her job and now she's a high-flying psychologist or whatever, she's making bank.
Or you could put your thing on mute, Garvin. I don't know if that's you, Garvin. If you could put your thing on mute so that he can speak, because I think we're hearing the TV in the background. Go ahead, Terrence.
Yeah, so now that she's a high-flying psychologist, right? I'm still the carpenter that I was, making honest money. It's not great money, but it's okay money. We've been eating off of it. We've always had a roof over our head. But now you this high-flying psychologist, 3, 4, 5 years into your career, you start feeling yourself. Next thing we know, you moving different with me.
Okay.
But I'm the same guy. I'm providing the same amount of love. I'm providing the same amount of money. It's you that has now elevated to a point where you're like, I can level up. And I feel like he should too.
That's called hypergamy.
No, it's not.
No, so check this out. Hypergamy is when women want to go from one level of man to the next level of man to the next level of man. A lot of times these men get these women when they are not up. So that man took you in when you didn't have it. He paid for your school sometimes. That man was holding you down, paying the bill down so you could go to school. And now all of a sudden that you got the degree and that you got the offer, that you're making more than him, you're now looking at him as if he's beneath you, but you're not crediting what he did to get you to where you are. And that's unfair.
And this is why a lot of men who are blue collar men think that women are
Honest work.
crazy for doing this. Because at
Right.
the end of the day, it's a collective and you sacrifice together as a unit, meaning there's going to be a moment in the relationship where you don't got it and I got it. And I'm not going to hold it against you that you don't got it. I'm just going to make sure that I hold you down until you can better yourself. But then if you get to a point where while I've been just doing the what I needed to do to sustain us until you can get into a better situation, and now that you got into the better situation, the nerve of you to think you can look down at that man and say, oh, you know, when we started out, it took me 6 years, 5 years to get my degree. And now that I got my degree, you were paying for everything, holding everything down. But now that I got my degree and I'm making more money than you, for the last 5 years, you haven't done anything to elevate yourself. And I can't tolerate the fact that I make more money than you and you don't. To me, that's unfair because that man contributed his part to the relationship to get y'all in a better position. The mindset should not be, now that I'm here, what are you doing? It's a collective. Collective minded means we have elevated, meaning it went from a one income to a two income situation. You know what I'm saying? It went from maybe a household where, you know, you were carrying the bulk of the expenses, but now that you have some weight, you shouldn't throw into that man's face that like, hey, I'm making more money than you. I can't respect you. No,
Right.
there was a moment where you weren't making that as much money. He was holding you down. Why should you look down upon him now that he's in a different position, now that you're in a higher position? That's not fair. Go ahead.
And I said that to say, I want to be specific about what we deem a dust bucket, because I think it's, you know, I don't want to equate making less money than your spouse to being a dust bucket.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying? So
Can
because
I,
you could make less money and being a honest blue collar worker.
correct.
You clocking
Can I,
in
Nothing wrong with
hours.
that, man.
Yeah, you know
no,
what I'm saying? You clocking in 8 to 16 hour shifts. You know what I'm saying? You a hardworking man and no one can take that away from you.
Nothing
You know what
wrong.
I'm saying? You're not making as much money as the next nigga. You know what I'm saying? You can't do fly shit like the next nigga. However, you are an honest and hardworking man who works day in and day out to put bread on the table. It just so happens now that your wife makes more money than you, maybe in a little bit more of a flashier profession, but you know what I'm saying? I don't want to equate less money than your spouse to being a dust bucket. You know what I'm saying?
agreed. But I have a question with that. Um,
Guys, when you're not
I
speaking, go
always,
on mute so that we
I
don't have any
always
feedback.
wondered,
I'm getting that.
what did you expect though, in a way? Because if you're pouring into somebody, you're pouring into somebody because you know that they're going somewhere and they're going to make it. So at that same time, while they're doing that, there needs to be a plan in your mind on, okay, baby, you about to do this. Once you lock that down, this is what I'm going to do. There needs to be a plan for yourself too. So if you're a carpenter and that's your trait and you are great at it, would you like to own a carpenter business? Would you like to do something else to take it to the next level as well? Because you cannot remain stagnant in life. If there's anything in life if anything in life is constant, is change, and you need
Yeah.
to evolve and you need to grow.
Okay,
I
I'll give you an
cannot
example with
be
that,
an
Karen.
accountant staying in the same position for 10 years.
Garvin,
That
I
means
agree with
either
your
I'm
point.
not doing my
Garvin, I
job
agree with your
correctly.
point. I agree with your point, but let's take it outside of the realms of a relationship between a man and a woman, and let's take it out in the realms of a relationship between a mother and their children. Sometimes we grow up in humble Caribbean households where your mom had to be somebody's, nurse. You know what I'm saying? She had to scrape a regular wage living just to position you to go to school to get something better, right? So you can be better. So in society, sacrifice is required within the household. If your mom's ability doesn't change in that, she's been a nurse for however many years she's been, when you graduate from school and you get means now, for you as a parent, as a child, to say to your mom, oh, why are you still at the same level? To me, I feel like that would be rude and disrespectful. And that would undermine the sacrifices she made to get you there. I think you could take that example and apply it in a relationship, right? If I am with you, maybe you met a man who was a blue collar a worker. He met you, you might have had a child. You might have been down bad. And that man was willing to say, irrespective of the fact that that's not my child, irrespective of the fact that, you know, you're not my responsibility, I'll be willing to come in and do life with you. And what God has given me is the ability to do this particular task. And maybe I'm going to do this for 20 years. And I'll give you a perfect example. There's some teachers who've been teaching for the longest period of time. That's a low wage earning career that do it for years. And it makes zero sense. Their students come up, make more money than them, yet and still they're still in the same position. Because I think for them, their impact is not just weighed on how much they've earned. They're influencing people's lives. There's some sort of purpose that they have in doing the type of work that they do. And sometimes people do work because they feel joy in doing that work. So if we get to a point where we get to assess, we take a step back and we say, man, I married this guy who's a teacher and he's been a teacher making this amount of money forever. You know what I mean? And even though you've ascended up the ranks within your professional career, for you to now say, well, because he's a teacher and you advanced in finance and you grew in your career, you became a vice president, you did all these great things, but this guy gets gratification out of being a teacher. Now, all of a sudden you have a right to look down on him and say, oh, you know, I make twice as much money as Joe makes. And roll your eyes. To me, I feel like the argument ends up being diminished because sometimes people are fulfilling their purpose and their purpose doesn't always require a big bank.
And I want to tack on to that and say that everybody can't be a business owner. Everybody cannot be a CEO.
Correct.
Someone has to do the layperson work. Someone has to pick up the garbage on the street. Somebody got to drive the garbage truck to make life go around. We all can't own businesses. And
someone has to work at that nursing home. Someone's got to do these things.
Like those. I say it all the time. I actually tell my friends, I don't care if I meet a guy and he's for example, an HVAC tech and he's good at it. He makes decent money. I'm a nurse. I go on, I become a nurse practitioner. I become advanced practice. I'm making over 100 grand a year, 200 grand a year. I'm not looking down on him I met him as an HVAC tech. That's what he does. That's what he's good at. There's only so far he can go as an HVAC guy. Why would I like doing that? Say, why aren't you progressing in life? If he's happy doing that and our life is comfortable with both of what we're doing, what's the problem? Again, like I've been saying, it's always ego and people not being emotionally mature and emotionally intelligent in their relationships. And they're doing good things because they're letting the egos and their lack of growth get in the way.
Yeah. But that only applies to the older demographic that we're talking about. In Tucker Carlson's example, even speaking about individuals under 30 who are not necessarily financially stable, lack of a better word, or have reached that pinnacle or anything like that. I think
under 30, you haven't barely lived life though. You're
right.
Just life experience. You just experience life that's going to give you the intellect and the maturity and the stuff to tackle the stuff when you get above 30. So if you're making drastic life decisions as to take your life because life got a little difficult or you're not able to find a woman to have sex with you, then I'm thinking natural selection.
I think it's a lot of misinformation or lack of information that's associated with that as well. I mean, if you put it into context, you know, from a male's perspective, you know, they reach their peak earning potential between 45 and 55. That's not actually communicated to the masses in large. And so we have a younger demographic that's being told by females, hey, I need to make as much as I possibly can immediately, exactly where I'm at, but not really giving the context in terms of when does that actually happen.
If you're earning little by little.
the younger women these days have this expectation that the younger gentlemen are earning 100,000 straight out of college, where that's not necessarily happening. You know what I'm saying? That's where they're setting their standards or expectations at. You know what? They can go ahead out of college. They went and became a nurse practitioner, and they're making that 100. But that's not my career path, or that might not be that gentleman's career
But
path. But he may be on a career path where he'll hit that stride and then some, and far exceed whatever it is that a nurse practitioner. I'm just using that as an
that,
example of make in the longer term. But nobody is thinking in longer term metrics. We're thinking about the immediacy or here and now, which is why a lot of young people are getting discouraged and choosing to unalive themselves, because at the end of the day they feel like they can't compete with an expectation or a notion that's out inside of the marketplace where the lack of information is present. So I think when you put all of that inside of context, that can go ahead and give a little bit of insight into the younger generation as far as career path and development in terms of women respecting it or anything along those lines. I still maintain my stance that it's subjective based on the woman that you interact with or the man that you interact with, and whether or not, yes, there is some emotional maturity, mutual respect between both parties, but it's very nuanced even at its very nature. So
but I think that thing
I
we
just
talk about the idea of people not being aware of how when you reach your financial peak, it's been gatekeep for even before this generation, because even nowadays people think when you graduate as a medical doctor you're making bank. Most new doctors are broke for the first 5 years out of medical school. I know that because I worked with them every day. I taught them, you know. They're not making money, but people have been becoming doctors forever. But
If they be
people,
paying back their loans, that's why.
they're $500,000 in debt. They're not making no money as residents, but they're basically living their life on credit, you know. But this is stuff that has been going on for generations. The people buy into the prestige and the titles and the status, but not knowing that it takes work and time to get there. It's not just this generation.
well, I definitely agree with that, but I also have to say that there's a lack of excuse there simply because we all have the world at our fingertips and information is readily more accessible today than it was 20, 30 years ago. So it kind of circles back to our argument that I made earlier in this conversation where it is a lack of effort. Again, with the three things, I can't be broke, dusty, and ugly real quick. I got to pick a struggle to go ahead and be on. I can change my financial aspect. I can get some more information in terms of when I hit my stride or what career paths to go into. If I'm out of shape or overweight, I can definitely increase my physical presence. I can't change about being ugly except putting some cocoa butter on, being groomed or anything along those lines. So I think it all ties in. At the end of the day, that at least for the younger generation, not putting the effort or the extra intensity to go after those things that they want to attain, they just usually take the easy way out and just self checkout line. So
I just think that based on where we're at, the conversation starts at like is being broke relative to what? Like being broke is relative. So it's like, all right, a dude makes, I don't know, 80K.
$50,000. Yeah, yeah.
Nah, call it 80K. I mean,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying? Call
nah.
it 80K.
Now,
50,000, bro.
there's
50,000.
nobody
No, but
at
hear
So
what I'm
25
saying.
and nothing.
What happened?
At 25, if you're broke, that is understandable. Nobody at 80K, you would think that's decent, but most people are not breaking out.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So making 80K, that's not, you're not broke. You got 80K, you got some money. It's not money, but you can do your day-to-days. You know what I'm saying? You're not broke. You're just not making the money that you would like. You're just not making the money that people deem money. You feel what I'm saying? Like, so relative to what are we saying?
relative the terms, I believe it was more along the lines of women are not engaging inside of marriage because they don't want to embark on relationships with or marriages with men that make less than them. So I guess the first standard would have to be, let's use the example. Okay, if a woman is making, I'm just going to use the example, $100,000, she's not willing to accept a man that's making 85.
Exactly.
So that context, I get where you're going from, and I wanted just
Yeah,
to articulate that. We
right.
have to level set that foundation right there and make it very clear. At what point is there a threshold to where this woman may or may not want to interact with this man on a marriage level, relational level, or anything along those lines? Then we also have to juxtapose that inside of the conversation of the younger demographic, who we already know is not even making that kind of money.
Not touching that
You know
money.
what I'm saying? So there's two juxtapositions that are present. One where we've actually attained a level of success and financial independence, and then for the younger demographic who hasn't, because there's two microcosms that are present at the same time.
Right.
So we're coming from the perspective of, I'm pretty sure in this panel, we're coming from perspectives where we're already past that point of the struggling aspect, where we've settled into career paths, or at least have an idea of a career path that we're embarking on, and then actually embarking on those steps to, go down that path itself. From the other dynamic that Tucker Carlson was talking about in terms of, the younger demographic, the unaliving themselves, the lack of sexual access due to women believing that, they don't want to mate or have relations with anybody that's making less than them. I think that other aspect in that context is missing.
But I think we fully agree on that point. But it really boils down to, like you said, the career path. So I'm gonna go back to like regular trades again. If I meet a girl at, say, let me call it 30. I meet a girl at 30. She meets me, and I tell her I'm a carpenter. She knows I'm a carpenter, right? The earning potential of a carpenter only goes so far.
Give a number.
I don't really know what the wage of a carpenter is, but I can't imagine that it's, anything.
Make up one.
Let's call it 85 again.
Say less.
Okay, so let's call it 85. And she meets him, he's making 85, right? He's 30 years old, making $85,000 a year. He's got enough to take her on dates, you know what I'm saying, and maybe a vacation every year, right? But that's the entry point. Now, at what point does at what point do all women view a guy in that position and say, okay, am I willing to marry a man who I know isn't going to make anything relatively more than $85,000 in his?
Yeah, the average is $18 to $30 per hour
for a carpenter.
For a carpenter.
So was that
60 grand? 60 grand
about,
annually.
40,
so it's even less than I said. So at what point do women say?
Yeah, that's 60.
Yeah, at what point do women say, okay, I would marry a carpenter? That's the problem in and of it. It starts there. You won't marry a carpenter. It's not so much about like his money. It's the profession and the potential of that profession. There's nothing wrong with the profession, but you won't marry him because he's a carpenter, because you know where that's going to go. You know how far that goes, and it's not far in regards to what you have in mind for the life that you want to live. And as we progress in society, it's becoming more and more of a burden for the men who choose those professions, in regards to realizing that it's harder for me to find a spouse for the career, because of the career path that I chose. And it's not a poor one. It's an honest career path. But because of this career path, I'm not going to find somebody.
But you knew that walking in, though, bro. That's that.
I understand.
You knew that walking in, so you limited
I'm only saying
your
that to say
options.
that's the problem.
No, I'm not saying it's a problem, but like, knowing that information, like, your carpenter the max is between 60 to, let's just say, 70,000. I know that's all I'm ever gonna make, but I know the women out here, they want somebody that's making 6 figures or more. Me personally, I'm with that information, and I'm trying to get married. I'm trying to have a family or anything like that. Although carpentry may be my passion, or a path that I would want to go down, is not the ideal for the other aspects that I want to accomplish in my life to set me up for the best of success.
I understand,
I disagree.
I disagree with that whole point. I agree.
I'll say this.
Hold on. If all men thought like that, what if all men just said, we're gonna stop being carpenters. We would have no cribs.
No, I agree.
If
But
all men said, bro, for the sake of finding a wife, I'm
there's
not gonna be a
levels.
plumber.
This problem is not a monolith because Hispanic community, a lot of the men are blue collar workers and they're married with kids.
And they're
Right, but it's
married
not.
and doing well.
Right.
So why is it an issue in the black community? That's the
Not
question.
all women want a man with 6 figures.
But what I'm saying is, for this
Yeah, but
particular,
y'all just said you
No,
couldn't
we're just using
marry a
that as an
man who
example.
wasn't making less than more money than you because you can respect him. We just had that conversation.
Right.
This is what we're talking
Right.
about.
If all right, so the average income of a black woman, if you go to blackdemographics.com, is $65,000 a year.
And
A
she would
blue
have
collar,
a carpenter.
she would she be happy with a carpenter?
Absolutely.
Right. Let's just say if he came in at 60,000 and the average for a black woman is 65, would she be happy with him?
Absolutely.
If that man
Tucker
was
Carlson,
emotionally healthy, secure, life insurance, benefits, all of that, emotionally intelligent, all that good stuff, yes.
He gotta have life insurance though.
Also,
I just threw that in.
The whole term.
not only
You know
can he
they
make less
got
than
the
you,
union.
he got
That
to
life
be in the
insurance is
union
what, $1
and he
million?
got to do the life insurance.
yeah,
I didn't
So that
mean
way
it
she
like
can
that.
live well after he
He can
dies.
live well after he dies.
322.50 hurt. Each month that 322.50 hurt for that life insurance policy. If I'm a carpenter, real quick, I'm just.
Shorty
I pay-
already cried on his death, boy. Like you gonna make I'm gonna get something out of you, brother.
what's that money? Federal give you $500,000 in life insurance for $22 a month. I know this because I have it.
That's
Fuck that
term.
month.
That's term.
Nah,
That's not a whole
that's
life
term. That's
policy.
not whole life.
That's not whole life.
I'm just saying, if we're talking about just generally life insurance, you could get it for cheap. So that doesn't even have anything to do with anything. There is people who are okay with that.
So
Nobody's
let me
gonna.
say this. Let me say this. So technically, you could be dating a rich, poor man. You could be dating a man who's wise, makes a basic amount of money, but is wise enough to invest in term life insurance so that when he passes away, your family is a millionaire.
Yeah,
so
but that's
really
not
and
the
truly,
goal.
this should be a non-issue in the black community.
No, that's not the goal, though. The goal isn't for me to die for my family to be on. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy.
Come on,
bro.
now. Preach, Terrence.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm trying to do this with y'all. Like, I gotta be born for y'all to have it. It's crazy.
Where can I give my tithes? Why
Like,
I
bro.
gotta die for y'all to make it and I can't experience the work I put in?
That's crazy, bro. Like, I'm not, no, but
I'm sorry, I said anything, yo.
I might as well just hire somebody to off me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this way they can't claim it was a suicide. And cash out.
No, real talk. Most women just want a good guy with good character, may have with a stable job, bringing in stable income, and if she's working, he's working, and they're able to have a comfortable life. That is what most women want. That's what most.
Zoe, that's not what
I do not want a rich jerk.
Yes, no woman wants a rich jerk. But if we level up, and that's fine. Heather,
I disagree.
The majority of women are not out here talking about, oh, this dude is, he's just a mechanic, so I'm not. No.
But the metrics are saying that you care about how much finances the man makes, but if you're going to commit to him in a marriage or even a relationship, the metrics itself and what was presented from the video contradict what you're saying right now, Zoe.
Right. It's based on his income.
It's based on his income. The sheer fact that it was mentioned that a woman will not, majority women, and we can go to the black community right now, majority of black women do not want a man that's making less than them. That the metrics are showing that counteracts your argument you're making.
Which by default,
I don't know if that even makes sense.
In a career or even know what they want to do.
No, but that's the reason.
So it's kind of, I'm sorry. It's kind of, I don't know what statistics that is, but usually those type of marriages won't even last anyway, because A man with 6 figures or a rich person that makes 6 figures, it's obvious that their priority is their money, not the woman or the man that they're with. So that's why I say I don't want a rich jerk, because that at the end of the day, that man is not going to be able to satisfy me emotionally.
Exactly.
I'm
It's
going to come second to his money.
money. But
I
But
think
at
But
the end of the day, let's say shit hits the
working all
fan.
the time.
Are you looking to your emotions to protect you and to provide for you, or are you looking for that bag to help you out when shit hits the fan?
right.
I'm looking for the carpenter or the plumber, right, Terrence?
I'm
No,
looking
That
for
but
The
that
big
has the
cash
life
mover.
yo,
insurance
you just got backslid,
and
Terrence. It's
and a
over, bro.
stable check,
It's over.
Gotta have
and
that life
who can
insurance, though.
love on me
this.
every night. Okay, go ahead.
It's over. You
no,
got
I
boxed
listen.
in, bro.
The
I
bag
think
together, then I don't have to worry about whether I'm going, because we both gonna be good if we
no.
get it together.
The
So
constant here is the constant here.
My question is, why
Real
is
quick,
no one
Emmanuel,
just saying our combined income is good enough?
because it's.
Like,
I mean,
why is that not okay? Why is
but
it not
that's what I'm
okay?
saying.
But
I
no, it's not okay because the woman said it's not okay. That's
exactly.
why she
That's
don't
the
want to
see
be
problem.
in a relationship. She said it
Isaiah,
based
thank you.
on
And
the
that's
metrics.
Isaiah, thank you. That's what I'm trying to get at. The constant here is men. Men have stayed the same. So to Isaiah's point, Isaiah's saying that, okay, cool. If I as a man understand that women no longer will respect and honor a man based on the profession that he chooses, knowing his income potential, I'm, as a man, particularly a black man, I'm going to shift gears and say, fuck it. Despite the fact that I'm really good at that, I'm going to pursue something else, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to have a wife or kids.
I don't
So
want to.
no, hold on, no. So if that's the case, as a man, what does that force black men in particular to do? It makes us have to shift. But what's happening is we're not. We're continuing to do the honest trades. We're continuing to pick up the to do the regular jobs. We're not the ones changing. It's you guys. It's the women changing. The men are continue. That's why we're not we're finding ourselves not content with the positions that we're in. We're finding ourselves offing ourselves. We're finding ourselves in the
Do
depressed
you
positions as
want
a population.
that men are offing themselves because they're pursuing women that are just out of their league?
No, they can't get them.
But because they're going after women that is out of their league.
No, but because it's not out of their league. But why is a
They can
nurse?
go for the big mamas.
No, no. Why is a nurse out of the league of
Yeah.
again a carpenter? What makes her out of his league?
There is no which 25-year-old carpenter do you know?
I know a couple.
I know a few.
Carpenter, 25-year-old carpenters.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
I know a couple.
I know a
They
few.
how much money?
I mean, I won't be asking them about their pockets, but based on
I
the
mean,
numbers,
listen, I can tell you, I know two of them right now that already did their 4 year journeymanship, and they're already making 59,000. And I
Oh,
work with them every day inside
so
of commercial real estate.
and
okay.
I'm telling you right now, I know the carpenters that I know, they bag them. Now it's a matter of those women that they're bagging committing to them long term.
But which nurses are you finding that are saying a carpenter is out of their scope?
The triage nurse.
I don't know what kind of nurse, but I know a lot of the nurses that I know, bougie.
That
They taking vacations.
The one that keep asking me if I got Medicaid or PPO. Huh?
Or
Yo,
life
but
insurance.
they're doing that with their own money though. They're not.
but again, it's with their money, but once that money becomes their money, together money,
Right.
now she's looking at it like, okay, hold on, I
Everybody.
bring this. At the end of the day, it's a matter of once they get together part. How long does it last? That's the problem. It's not getting together that's the problem. It's making it last that's the problem.
But
And a
then
lot of times it doesn't
down to
last on the money tip. It's because Shorty's making more bread than him.
no, but I think we're making it super simplistic, and it's not that super. It's not that simple. It's nuanced because it comes down to the individuals in the relationship. It's like people that have said, "I hate marriage. I will never get married again." Marriage is not the problem. It's the two people in the marriage that was the problem. You married the wrong person, so it's not the institution of marriage
Ooh,
that has. It's
great point.
Say that. Yeah, that was good.
And so that's what I'm saying. We're making these generalizations and simplistic generalizations about nurses don't. No, it's the people who get together. There are people who desires that thing, but I'm saying majority of us are not
Okay.
there.
No,
So we
that's
all
fair,
know a
Gordon.
nurse. We all know a nurse in here, right? Everybody in here knows a nurse. All right.
Yeah,
Yep.
What kind of men do the nurses go for? The female nurses.
Well, since I'm a
Do we
nurse,
know any nurse
since
that
I'm a
dates a
nurse,
bum
I've dated
or that dates a
a truck
subpar man?
driver.
Let's be
I've
real.
dated a truck driver. I've dated an HVAC guy. I've dated a CEO of a company. I've dated all kinds of guys because I've dated them because of who they are and what I liked about them.
Was
Question.
that within the
Question.
first 7 seconds or 5 minutes?
Mind you, and
So, question.
I said dated. I didn't say I smashed.
No, but exactly. No, but question though. Why did it stop at dating? Why didn't
No,
it go further?
because certain character flaws I couldn't deal with.
What were they?
They were dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about money.
That's
I
true.
think on
It was
their
the character.
It was their character. It wasn't about money.
Look,
Because
I'm totally game for a woman dismissing a guy based on the fact that he's low character. That goes back to the whole dust
100%.
bucket situation. But that's what I'm saying. I feel like we've stopped measuring people on the basis of their character and then measuring them on the basis
Yes.
of their pockets
of
and
their,
their means.
Exactly.
And this is why this conversation is necessary to be had, because we can't even get to the character part because they didn't even qualify by your money standards to even be a part of the conversation.
Right. And
Do
that's
you
why a
understand
lot
my point?
of the youngsters are self-checking out when I'm not even offered a seat at the
They feel
table
like
when
they'll never
finances are
measure
the
up.
currency to measure in.
when
That's the problem.
they're a stand-up guy. A lot of these dudes that's offering themselves as stand-up guys.
anybody offering themselves have weak mental capacities.
Yeah, but
That's
they may
that's fair.
yes, they may be weak. They may be weak mentally, right?
They shouldn't be in a relationship. If this is off, they shouldn't be in a relationship. They
But
should be
apart
working on
from that, though, they were probably a stand-up
Fair
dude.
point.
I,
Garvin, I want you to weigh in real quick if you're still on. You still on?
Yeah, yeah.
Give me some feedback, Garvin. What's your thoughts? I mean, do you feel like has that changed your position? Because you were talking about men being sobby and all of that, but you know, there's been some valid points made. I'd like to get your thoughts. What do you think?
From these three questions, I'm going to guess yourself.
Listen, there have been some valid points that are made, but the character is the number one thing, and the character is what needs to drive. But generally, going back to it, when you meet somebody in college, it's different from meeting somebody 10 years out of college.
Mhm.
So if you are in the dating pool 10 years outside of college, finances is going to play a bigger part than, in my opinion, because the first thing that you're going to notice is how they look, how they dress, possibly, it's going to be materialistic things before you even say hello, or the character, before the character even shows up.
Very fair point.
Very fair.
Good point.
So let's get this into context. So if we're talking about a younger person in their 20s, you have a better shot at finding somebody on the rise and working with them, and you can build that nucleus together and work and rise together, versus somebody who's hitting 40 or at 40
Okay, so let's
or
stop
even
there.
35. It hits different,
You're
because
saying the measurement, the
people
standard of
have
measurement should be
grown in the
different?
ladder of success. People have done different things and gotten a certain taste of different things that they're not as open as they were 10 years prior.
That's fair.
So in your view, the standard of measurement should be different depending on what the person's age is.
Correct. It plays a part. It's a factor. It is a factor.
Okay,
It
so
is
I
a
have one
factor
more point to add.
because it's just like, and I'm gonna use both men and women. Certain things that you put up with in your 20s, you won't put up with in your 30s. Certain things that you put up with your 30s, you don't put up in your
In your
40s.
40s.
You
Yep.
grow, you evolve, and certain things, your maturity level becomes different, and so does your bank account.
Yep. Yep.
It's fact.
But that goes back to the statistics. What Tucker was saying in his stats is that because of the economics, because of the policies, because of the state of our economy in terms of where we are, there are less lucrative opportunities for men. Meaning the average man literally are living paycheck to paycheck, bro. Cost of living, opportunities, and a lot of times what ends up happening is it creates a lot of pressure on the household. And he's saying some of those men, there's two fronts. Some of those men are finding it extremely difficult to even get married, which now leaves them feeling a bit disenfranchised. They don't feel like there's anything to really live for because one, I'm not earning no money. Two, because the type of craft or the type of opportunities that are available to me. Two, I'm not getting married, so there's not something greater that I'm working towards. I don't get the benefit of a family because women aren't choosing me. And three, I'm not having sex. So they're not having
No,
sex.
that's a
They're
major
not getting
problem.
that's they're not having sex, they're not getting no money, they're not getting
That's
families.
pent up
So
frustration.
that's pent up frustration. And what he's saying is a lot of the societal problems you find in the world, high crime, all these issues, rebellion, drug use, all these things, people committing suicides, all those are being triggered by the fact that these factors are not being addressed. And so, from the type of policy that are being implemented
Do
in
you
our
think
society
social
today,
media
those
plays a
things have
part in that,
trickle down to.
where they kind of see people possibly their own age in terms of suicide factor as well too, that they see and they think and they have the perception, I need to be at this level at this young age. Do you think that that's also driving some of these younger
Yes,
girls on thinking, hey,
I would say so.
I want
Yeah.
this, I want that? Don't do You don't think that that kind of plays a part?
absolutely.
I think
You
I
know,
would totally agree that that definitely plays the part into it. And I think people forget. Some people think social media. People forget that social media is nothing but a highlight of other people's lives. It's not actually what goes
correct.
on the
It's a
day to day
snapshot,
behind
a
the
quick
doors or
snapshot.
anything like that. It's just
Mhm.
that's just pretty much what it is. And when you have this whole keeping up with the Joneses thing, because a lot of comparison games start happening. And so when a lot of comparison games start happening, then you start having the whole thing in the third. And then also you have to think about it is you have a lot of like, not to get into the quote unquote ages thing, but you have a lot of millennials still getting quote unquote boomer advice in a day and age where that stuff technically doesn't even apply anymore. So you have some people that go, well, yeah, when I was your age, I already had a house and everything else, and I was 25, blah, blah, blah. Economics were totally different from that time compared
I
to
live
like what
in
it is
Boston
now.
where a 1 bedroom apartment is $2,500. Why?
Yeah, I
Why?
don't.
You know what I mean? Like,
Try
come
New
on, bro.
York.
That's crazy.
That's why I
Try
In
New
left.
York.
California.
That's why I left.
And that's why
Try
I
New
ain't a
York.
carpenter.
You're not getting a mortgage under 4,500
Like,
right now.
bro.
And I'm talking about, yeah. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So, I mean, what I'm saying is, in all, I think what I want to do is bring some light around the issue and really just have people assess it because I think we have mismanaged expectations, right? Because as we speak about this in the Hispanic community, this isn't an issue. So how is it that they can have the same kind of dynamics where the man earns less, they still work hard, but their relationships are more intact. Their communities are more intact. But in our community, for whatever reason, that's
What
not the
makes you,
case.
where are the statistics on that? What makes you say that in the Hispanic community that they remain,
I
they
mean,
remain? I'm
if you
sorry.
look at if I think it was a similar black demographics statistics that talked about marriage and divorce
and which households tend to be more married and together versus which households tend to be more divided, right? And in the Black community, we tend to not score very high in terms of staying together.
Mm.
That's just a fact. You know
That's
what
a
I mean?
fact.
I think it's in the Asian community, they're probably some of the most married. Then that would be
Yes.
followed by the white community, then probably the Hispanic community, and then it
But
trickles down to the Black
you
community.
do know that in the Asian community, we'll use the Asians for now. They tend to, and I'm talking about, they tend to, when they come to this country, they tend to all live in like one house or even one bedroom apartment, and they don't have a problem with literally stacking up until they do education, they do, and they
You are
branch out, and they
literally
all branch
making
out
a
and
And
point.
move
that,
out on their
yeah,
own. And that goes for
said
the
that
Hispanic
earlier.
community too.
So you
I'm
see,
Caribbean,
That earlier.
and the Caribbean
That's
culture, they do
literally
that as
every
well too.
culture except
The
for
Caribbean
American
culture, they do
culture.
I
that too. If you
literally said
coming
that earlier.
from the Caribbean and you come here, they generally you know whoever's in the States first, whether you're in New York, Boston,
Mm-hmm.
Philly, whatever, because they normally major cities, and you come and then you stay, and then generally when a person moves out of the basement or out of the room in your house, they generally take off.
yeah,
They
get on
not
their own
I'm not
feet.
saying take off, but are able to be self-sufficient. And
Yes,
I've realized that, especially with like the Asian community, they are big on doing that. And Hispanic community, they do that. They do that. And they
but not
also
Everywhere.
a lot of times they end up getting married, and then they move back in with their parents until that they can get their own too. They do that too in the Hispanic community.
but you see,
Heavy.
you're making
So
a
that
great
way
point.
they can build.
You're making a great point. That's being community minded.
Correct.
In the
In
Black
order to
community, we're
elevate and grow. But
independent
here's
in
the
order to
thing,
elevate and grow.
elevation's in there too.
But in the Black community, we're pumped being independent minded. So, our women are told, be independent. You don't need a man. Go do this by yourself.
Men
Do
are
you understand what I'm
distractions.
saying?
You make sure
It's
you
a,
focus on your school. Get the
focus
money.
on school, get the money, do it by
Okay, can I
yourself. You don't need a
interject?
man. Go ahead.
I think it's a cultural thing,
Hmm.
not just Black community. So I'm both Black and Dominican.
Okay.
In Spanish, there are Hispanic people in the Northeast. I want to say New York. That's where I'm from. That thrive in American culture. So they are being told, their daughters are being told to be independent and not to rely on a man. Certain cultures in the Hispanic community are very family oriented, where they are very traditional. So it's just depending on the culture. Like American culture is gets away from the staying in the keeping it in the family, the traditional way of living.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. How do we fix that problem? Because how do we band together and change our mindset? Because that's the question, right? Why is it that some communities can come here and thrive, and we're here and we're not thriving as
Because they
Americans?
come from their countries and they keep their traditions intact.
Versus we
They
have a
don't. They do
tradition
not
of
pick up
Yeah,
the
it's not like
American
my family
culture.
volunteered to come over here. They were kind of
versus
snatched up.
yeah. The tradition
Yes.
here is
Correct.
essentially, hey, listen, every man for himself. I need to get mines. I need to go about getting mines the best way. And if you're not being advantageous to me, then I don't need you. That's really the culture that we have at the end of the day. Simply, even in Tucker Carlson's metrics. Hey, listen, if I'm not making no more than you, then how you been? If a man is not making more than a woman in terms of the metrics, how am I being an asset or a benefit to her? She don't even want to deal with it. She wants somebody that's making more than her so that she can go ahead and feel like that they are able to provide, that they're able to
Correct.
secure financially and everything along those
Everyone
lines.
else is a liability.
So at the end of the day, the difference in the main culprit is our culture is an independent culture, every man for himself, versus every other culture is family oriented, community oriented. So until we solve that issue among our people, amongst ourselves, we'll continue to have these conversations with respect to, hey, I don't want to date no carpenter. I don't want to date nobody that's making less than me. I don't want to marry him X, Y, and Z. But you still have the brother baby out of wedlock. You'll still date the pookie who's
And
20%
the
the
Ray
dust
Ray.
ball real quick. You'll still give it away to him. But then accountability issues, it's all going back inside, you know what I'm saying, of an endless loop until we break the cycle and say, hey, what kind of culture that we want to go ahead and establish for ourselves where we're accomplishing the goals that we want to meet. Until then, we'll always have this combo.
And it's exactly like what Isaiah is saying, is the culture. Because for me, this is why I disagree so much about being with a carpenter, because with my culture, a
I knew
carpenter
it.
is an honest job. I'm never going to say that something is wrong with a man for having a blue collar job, because I'm not focused on just my income or his income. I'm looking at both of incomes can do things. We can make moves with both our
M-
incomes. And
m-
like everyone is saying, like Isaiah and Gavin is saying, if we stop focusing on just what you're bringing and or what you can do for me and what we can do together, things will start to change. These conversations are never going to end if everybody's just saying, oh, well, black men are doing this or black women are doing this, but we're never getting to the point of what can we do together.
Together. It's facts.
Zoe, that's cap. That's cap. Some of it is cap, and I'm gonna tell you why. If you
Yeah.
make, I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna use this example. By your own words, you said we're gonna pool our resources together. All right, Zoe, you make 200,000. I make 150. Or let's just say I make 75. Our total combined household income is 275,000, but your income to participation ratio is 67%. So for every dollar that you put in, that's being put in, you put in 67% of that. That means 67% of the hours you had to place in for doing that extra overtime, working 80 hours and 90 hours a week because you're a nurse practitioner, and me just being a carpenter where I only got my 40, I was only able to give 33 cents. Eventually that resentment and that disrespect is going to
But
come in.
no. You're talking about a general overarching view of what you
No,
think happened. I don't operate like that.
no,
That's
I'm not saying you. I'm saying a generality, and
The
most
general,
people are
yeah,
gonna
it's a general.
but
because
it still comes back to people and their egos and their emotional maturity. At
so
the
let
end,
me ask. Let me
you
ask you a
have to
question
be.
then. Are you
I,
okay with holding down 67% of the liabilities of a
yes,
household?
I am okay if my man is a good man.
So,
If
all
he
right,
is
it
a
get rough.
good,
He lose his job. You got 100%. You cool with that
yes,
in
as
year
long as he's
one?
not sitting on my
Follow up.
Wait,
account
wait,
of
wait,
For
wait, wait, wait,
how
wait, wait. In
long?
year one, and answer the question. In year one,
listen, there
in
has
year
to be
two,
a time limit on you not
in
working.
year three. See, as a man, I don't
But
have a time
no.
limit. I have to
Why would
provide
you as
perpetually.
want to be there
I
for
have to
3 years
provide
not working?
100% of the debts and the liabilities as a man. This is why this is imbalanced, which is why I
If
called it
no,
cap. By
no.
your own words.
Listen, if my man lose his job and I have
Mhm.
to hold things down for 6 months to a year, I'm okay with that.
What
When
about
we
over a
start
year?
going past that, we have to reassess the situation and
That's
see
the limit
why
right
you
there.
can't
Six
What
months
find
about
to a year.
work.
18 months?
But
What
okay,
about
why
24
you
months?
can't find
Can I
work?
be on unemployment?
Got it. He said
You're
that's the
not addressing
limit.
the question though. Why is it 3 years in the game and you still can't find work? What is broken that we need to address why you can't find work after
I'll
a
Mm.
tell
year?
you. I'll tell you.
It's not just that simple of, oh, he's
That's a
there for
fair
3 years
statement.
and I'm holding him down.
I'll tell you what's broken. I had to sacrifice my happiness in a relationship with you so you could go ahead and get that registered nurse certification. I had to help put you through school, so I had to sacrifice. So now when I'm on hard times, you're limiting me, but
But why?
I put
No,
the hard
no,
times
that's
on my
the
back
question.
and took everything so
Why
that you can
out of
excel.
work for
But now
3
I
years?
only got a year.
No, a year is
That's what you
fine.
just said.
What are you out of work for 3 years for? That's what I'm asking.
I'm out of work because I went back to school because I don't want to be a carpenter. I want to go ahead
Okay,
and
if
be a
that's
financial
what
advisor.
to elevate yourself, I will hold you down until you're done with school.
But you just capped it a moment ago and said, yo, after a year, I need to know what's going on.
Yes,
I already told you
not
what's going on
working.
in the beginning.
You're
I'm going to school.
putting words in my mouth. I said, if you're just not working after a year and we're not addressing why you can't find work, then we need to reassess the situation. Yes. But if it's because you're making a different move to elevate yourself in life, so you're not back in the position of being laid off or whatever, I got your back.
I
There
lost
has
my
to be
right foot as a carpenter.
circumstances
A,
to
a, a
everything.
a
Everything
sink fell
is
on
not
my
black.
foot. I can't work. I got disability. That's that. You still gave him a year by your own
Okay,
words that you just said
but it's
earlier
still
just now.
nuance, Isaiah. If you're disabled, you're disabled. I could have become disabled and you'd have to take care of me. You're still
True.
disabled. It's not black and white. You're disabled. You can't work. I'm not gonna just leave my husband because he became disabled on the job.
I lost both feet.
Okay, we
I'm
gonna
messing
make
with
it
you
do
now.
what
We
it
good.
do.
He playing. He playing.
No, I'm dead ass though. If you lost your job and you're just sitting in a house talking about woe is me, I lost my job, my ego is bruised, and you're not getting up every day
All
going
right.
out there hustling to see,
All
we
right,
gonna
go.
have a problem.
So I got a serious one and then I'm done because I gotta be to bed by the streetlights. All
Yeah.
right, so let's say he was a carpenter. He lost his job. After a year, you're gonna come to him and you're gonna be like, all right, yo, what's going on? And then you're like, you know what, babe, I got us. And then he go get a McDonald's job.
No.
Now, you know what?
You said
You know
no.
what?
I mean,
Yeah,
he
you
can
know
go
what? I'm
to
out.
that
I'm
7-Eleven.
out. You just proved my
Listen,
point.
Smoker.
You just proved my point. You just
No,
proved my point.
no. He
Peace,
can do
love,
that
much
job
happiness.
until he can find something that's in his skill
Peace,
set.
peace,
But you
love,
Wait
and
a minute.
happiness.
Don't go, Isaiah. Hold on. Zoe, I got your back all the way. But we are forgetting love and God. We ain't
The
nothing
metrics
without
ain't talk
God in the
about loving God.
relationship.
The metrics
W-
ain't talk about loving God. It talked about actualities and stuff that's happening. And
Well,
she just
I,
said,
Anything can work with God being first.
I
of
love that you
course,
said that
I
because I think
definitely.
that's the perfect
That
segue to
is
wrap this
a
thing up.
main problem with the love and relationships today. Like,
So do you think we replaced money with God
Keep
and
God
started a
first and everything
yes,
relationship?
falls in place.
Okay. And that's why we don't got the culture.
right.
I would agree
That's
with that.
my
I would
bad,
agree with
Terrence, for
that.
the carpenter joint. That was just the expedient example, bro.
Huh?
I had to
But with
bring
that
it
said,
back now, y'all.
Yeah.
Miss Mocha, we appreciate you. That's
all right,
still
look, with
messed
that
up.
said, I think that's the best way to wrap this conversation up. I know we've been kind of a bit long-winded, and it was only supposed to be a 10-minute
10
convo.
minutes.
That being
3
said,
hours.
no, I think that's the best way. I think part of the reasons why society has gone so far astray is because God is not at the center of our household, and we're not doing it according to how He prescribed for it to be done in the Bible. And because now we're looking to the celebrity, we're looking to social media, we're looking for all these different people to dictate how we should be living our household, what we should be expecting from our mates, that we're not looking at what God says we should be doing. And if we're doing it the way God says we should be doing, we should be serving each other. Whether you got it 1 minute and he got it the next minute, the point is y'all got to stay in it because you guys are one collective. You're working for better or for worse, the sickness until death do you part. And if we really go back and putting God at the center of everything that we're doing, from our relationships to our day-to-day lives, then we cannot go wrong. And I think that's the answer to the question, because we'll ask ourselves, why is it this way? Why is it that way? The absence of God being involved in a serious manner is the answer to the question. And we can fix it by getting God more involved, getting God in the schools, getting God doctrine to become the basis and the values that we run our households on. Do y'all agree or disagree?
God also
Agree.
says, I offend you, cut it off, but I digress. I'm just kidding. But yeah,
That was
No.
beautiful. Agreed.
yes, agreed.
Agree. That's a fact.
Y'all agree? Okay, boom. Listen, this has been so great. I really do appreciate y'all taking time out of your lives. I know some of y'all, I pretty much got up out of bed to come through and contribute, but I do believe that you guys have some powerful voices, you know what I mean, to really share, because it takes one individual to start a conversation in a group and for that group to influence the community. So if we could start having serious conversations amongst ourselves, our peers, you know what I mean, and people that we influence, then maybe we could change things and lead people back to God so he could be at the center of all our issues within our community. With that said,
I thank you guys immensely for your time, and I pray that you guys will come back and do another show with me, as I think this conversation definitely needs some more input. All right.
All right.
Thank you,
Good
everybody.
night, everybody.
Last words? Any last words?
Nope.
Deuces.